This manhwa is a masterpiece. He grabbed the divine hammer, even though he was in his underwear. Just one hit from that and everything would be wiped off the map. His body is perfect, like he takes steroids every day. He has a servant who's kind of huge, who's willing to do anything for him. That's more important than the giant hammer, right? Certainly a giant servant is better. Even in the hero test, he passed easily and humiliated everyone without effort. But of course, it wasn't always like this. Before, the MC scavenged leftovers in dungeons to pay for his sister's medicine. He wanted to be a hero, but he had a trash body. One day, he found a badass ring in the dungeon. He went down there to get it. He planned to sell it, but he put it on his finger to make it easier to carry. But the ring got stuck on its new owner. It's like when you gain weight and your wedding ring won't come off anymore. Wouldn't soap get it off? Suddenly he was swallowed by a light and appeared in another world. Now he's in an orc world. He's the prisoner and would be judged by divine power. There was a huge hammer there that kept making lightning rain down. On the Beast King's order, a traitor orc got turned into barbecue in seconds. There was barbecue and nobody invited me. There was also a pretty stacked female prisoner who was in line. But now it was the underwear protagonist's turn. He would be punished for invading their land, which was isolated from the outside world. At first he dodges the first lightning bolt. Even the orcs were impressed. Underwear guy doesn't want to die. But soon he gets hit by another one. He dies to the divine lightning. But thanks to the ring, his body starts repairing itself and building an ultimate physique. Then he gets hit again and again, but the system keeps rebuilding his body. The lightning hits him again. But 40 of the ultimate physique build was already done, and he gained divine eyes. Underwear guy walks. Something was calling him. He was heading toward the divine hammer. His body was getting more and more muscular, and he also gained inventory and absolute duplication skills. No one had ever gotten that close to the hammer of the Divine King before. The Beast King himself is impressed as he touches the hammer. The boy asks if it's the one calling him. Suddenly the hammer starts to rise. His body had already reached 100 completion, and he gained a special status called the Chosen One. Lightning crackled everywhere, and the boy lifted it with a single hand. Thor, is that you? The hammer that used to be huge now fit in his hand. Underwear guy will make good use of this item. This was the divine hammer, and its powers were locked because the boy was still level 3. Now he can see his stats and feel stronger. That's because he reached level 3. While he was checking, a shadow moved quickly behind him. It was a giant orc ordering him not to touch the divine hammer. He is the general of the beast army at that moment. The boy remembered the divine eyes skill he had, and used it on the orc. His name is Ryuga and he's level 84 because the boy just stood there staring. The general thought he was challenging him, and almost chopped the underwear guy's head off with a sword slash. Obviously the boy didn't want to fight since the big guy is level 84 and he's level 3. Those 81 levels of difference seem kinda unfair. But the orc general didn't seem to care. The strike was so powerful it created a massive airwave. Underwear guy had blocked that strike. It wasn't easy. His hand was shaking from the impact. The orc says it was just luck. But underwear guy says this is all a misunderstanding and that he should listen. But the giant doesn't seem very rational. So he grabs the boy by the neck, lifts him into the air like he's a butterfly. I thought we were gonna get that Hulk smashing Loki scene, but up in the air, the protagonist realizes he has a skill to copy other skills. All he needs is to touch near the target's heart, so he jumps and touches the big guy's chest. I don't know if it was because he touched the male orc's nipple, but he suddenly struck a pose. With that, underwear guy was flooded with skills. He could choose any one of them. Meanwhile, the orc was furious. He wanted to rip him in half in the rush. The boy chooses the Heaven Shaker skill. Since it's compatible with the hammer, he came in full force to use the skill. Realizing it was his skill, the orc panics. For someone who only has a hammer, every problem is a nail. And here comes the hammering. The orcs watching almost had their jaws drop. Smoke filled the area, and when it cleared, nothing had happened. Since the kid is only level 3, his weapon still wasn't doing anything. So yeah, he's totally screwed now with this chunk of hammer. The orc grabs his sword and rushes straight at him. And suddenly, someone tells him to stop the fight. The whole tribe is surprised. Since the Beast King himself was acting, an explosion occurs at the altar, and there was the king kneeling. Everyone is shocked, and the king says it seems he has been chosen by the divine hammer, and it is probably a sign from the gods. For hundreds of years, he was the first to achieve this feat. No one had been able to lift the hammer all this time, but that human was capable. If he is truly the future leader of the Beastmen, they must give him time to grow. The orcs start to argue, and then the general says that the boy is just a human. The leader asks if there is a problem, Ning if the prophecy said that the commander should be a beastly one, and if they should ignore the one who embodies hope for his people. At this, the general feels awkward, and the orc king asks what the boy's name is. He says his name is Tsuyoshi, and the leader says that if he is willing to carry the future of the tribe on his shoulders, he will free him, but the boy is still very weak. Within a year, he must gain strength and return. Then it will be at that moment they will see if he is worthy to command everything. If he does not return in that time, he will use this mental mark to hunt him down and kill him wherever he may be. This way, his people will also be satisfied, asking what the kid thinks. At this, the other girl asks to be accepted so she can gain her freedom and become stronger. Observing the situation, Tsuyoshi realizes that she was the next person to be punished after him. Using his ability on her, he sees that she is level 72 and is indeed a very powerful warrior. Wanting to know why she was marked as a criminal, but that no longer matters. Thanking her, she thinks that all that has happened was surely a miracle. First, he needs to survive this so he can return to his world. Accepting the leader's offer, he says he still has one condition: he wants to take that girl because she could end up being useful. She feels awkward, and the MC thinks that now they are even. Then time passes and Tsuyoshi in another place thinks that the voice he heard back then surely started coming from that ring. He doesn't leave. But thanks to this ring he gained all his abilities. But he wants to know how he will find a way back to the real world. Suddenly, someone says that the preparations are complete and decided to serve him since he is his savior. Hearing this, the MC already thinks of strange things, saying that from now on they will support each other. Then she says that he gave her a second life besides the fact that no one has ever supported or thanked her so directly. Asking to let her continue calling him master, the girl keeps staring at the boy, who awkwardly says that if she wants it so much, then there is no other choice. Anyway, they must continue on their path soon. But she says that it is quite late now, asking him to be careful where he steps. And Tsuyoshi, meanwhile, just thinks that this world is very amazing. However, he must compose himself because his sister is still waiting for him. The system notifies that the passage ability is now available for use, and the MC thinks that if he follows the same route, he will probably be able to return to his world without wasting time. He uses that blessed ability, starting to be teleported. He is happy to finally be able to go home, but his partner stayed right there. A few minutes later, Tsuyoshi in his world realizes that he was still in that hole and opening the system window. He is glad that the abilities he gained were still there. However, what is strange is that he is still at level 3. Besides, the so-called divine hammer was still there. The system informs that statistics are shared between worlds, but items are not so to use them. They must be placed in a so-called divine consciousness inventory. The MC was analyzing everything, and suddenly the rest of the group appears, asking what he was doing there, since the cave is about to close. Our boy, not understanding, asks why they are still there, since he has been out for hours. Surely something is not right after all. He spent at least 5 hours in the other world. However, the guy says that he has been there all this time, so they shouldn't delay and will have to leave soon. As they got up, Tsuyoshi thinks that probably time was frozen since he was in another world. That place stood still. And it is so strange that it even feels like he stepped out of a manga. By the way, he wants to know if the other world is frozen now, and also who really was the owner of that blessed ring. The MC finally gets out of that hole and all happy. Asks if the next awakening test will be tomorrow. In that moment, the scene shifts to a completely destroyed city. The protagonist was fleeing with his sister in his arms, when suddenly a giant creature appears. The girl tells her brother that she can't feel her legs anymore, and the protagonist, seeing the situation, wants to know if their dad and mom are okay. Everything around was completely destroyed, and the boy thinks that this couldn't be happening. The monster destroys one of the buildings there, and just as it was about to hit the protagonist, someone appears saying that if he stops moving, he will die if they go back to that place. Both will be killed, plus, he can't defeat that thing still. Tsuyoshi thinks that his dad and mom are still in that house, and the man says they need to get Karina to a hospital quickly. Then, the scene returns to the present with his sister asking if he's really going to take the test tomorrow and if he's sure he's okay since he just got back from work today. The boy says he's fine but wants to know how her leg recovery is going. She says that even though she can't take it anymore, the pain is still there, but she's starting to get used to it. Tsuyoshi observes the situation in silence and analyzing his sister's information. The system warns that there's no possibility of natural recovery, and the chance of her being able to walk is 1. Tsuyoshi thinks it must be very hard for her, that she should have lived at least a normal life. His sister is his only remaining family, so he doesn't want to see her suffering anymore. And even if the chances are almost 0, he will make sure she can stand up one more time. As long as there's a 1 chance, there's still hope, and there must be a way to do it. If he could become a hero, he would be able to access more information and maybe find a way. It's not just about healing Karina's legs, because he also wants to live his life of pride, and that's why he will become the strongest person to ever walk this earth. Days go by, and the moment of the awakening test finally arrives. The scientist congratulates him for finally becoming a hero, asking him to accept a badge that was personalized based on the results of his test. The guy there was all convinced for having succeeded, and the scientist analyzing some information realizes that a certain Tsuyoshi was taking the test once again. When ready, he can place his hand on the measuring device, even doubting that anything different from last time would happen, and the protagonist enters the room exuding confidence, saying they will see if this is a waste of time soon. However, the scientist says that if he failed once, it's likely the same. Plus, this device scientifically measures all angles. Moreover, he has seen many stubborn people like him go through that place. Then, our boy enters the room and places his hand on the device, thinking that now he's also level 3 and should probably qualify to be a hero. Either way, he needs to take this seriously. Using one of his system's strength abilities, the device analyzes the information, and the ground suddenly, incredibly, starts to tremble. The system informs that the boy's combat power is 5,400, breaking the level 3 hero record that was previously 930. The boy, seeing that, clearly can't believe it, since 5,400 is basically 10 times more than that previous guy. Obviously, he thought he had gotten a pretty resilient body, but didn't expect something of this level, right? Either way, he's all excited because no matter what happens, everything is going according to plan, and he will definitely get much stronger. By the way, he was quite curious about that so-called divine hammer power. However, when he tries to summon it, the system warns that due to insufficient level and some other conditions, the true potential of the hammer cannot be released. If he wants to force the release of that item, he will only be able to withstand it for just 1 second. Still, for the boy, that should be enough time to test the combat power. Activating the divine hammer power, he immediately realizes that his energy is being drained. In seconds, the whole city around starts to tremble, and the system, unfortunately, overloads. At that very moment, the scientist appears again, saying that the test has been suspended, calling everyone to evacuate. However, when he gets there, the protagonist is just in Batman's cape. Time passes, and the boy walking down the hallway thinks he underestimated that power and didn't expect all his strength to be exhausted in such a short time. In this case, he has to avoid using that divine hammer until he has the appropriate strength, but at least he has become a hero now. In the training field, a man introduces himself saying his name is Gaia, and he is the hero responsible for the training. The instruction is going to be quite heavy, but they will still need to keep up. Meanwhile, the protagonist was analyzing the power of the guy who is only at level 9, wondering how much his combat power would be when he reached that level 2. Seeing all those newbies, the professor was quite furious because he would rather be exploring a dungeon than doing this insignificant job. He threw the students to the ground. They are all going to enter a rank D dungeon tomorrow, and after some field experience, they will discover which occupation will be best for them. Hearing this, one of the students asks if there wasn't supposed to be a week of physical training first besides deciding their occupations before entering the dungeon. But the professor says they won't have time for that, and now that they are heroes, they will be honing their skills through real combat. This is his way of doing things, so they just have to follow his orders without asking any questions. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi thinks that this is just the guy venting his anger, and after all, a hero is still human, right? Anyway, there is a level 72 person waiting for him, and as soon as the teleportation ability recharges, he will obviously return to the other world, right? Sometime later, Tsuyoshi was already at home, and looking at the ring, he realizes that the waiting time for the other world has ended. Without wasting time, he uses the ring, and when he opens his eyes, he is already in another place. The view from before was the same, and even his clothes had returned to what he wore the first time. Assuming that once he returns to that world, time and equipment revert to their original state, right? Soon after, the girl appears again, asking if something is wrong, all awkward. The boy says it's nothing in any way, they are going to start leveling up. She says she is really happy that he was eager for this, and changing the subject, mentions that there is a goblin nest nearby. Even though they are level 3, they are still quite intelligent, so the best thing to do is to be careful. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks that now a fantasy world is really appearing, and he is excited to see what kind of effect this so-called system will have. A few minutes later, they were already getting close to the den, and the girl asked him to be careful not to wake them up then. Tsuyoshi says that she is level 72, and so she should probably be able to defeat them easily. Surprised, she asks how he knows her level, to which he replies that it's no wonder she is his master. Anyway, he wanted to know if she could show him how a high-level hero fights. She says that if she fights alongside him, he won't gain any experience points since the level difference is too great, but if he insists so much, she will do it. To be honest, she doesn't know if this will help, but he should pay attention. And going after those goblins, she takes them all out in a matter of seconds. Wow, the girl is really tough. Surprised, the boy says she is amazing, and she replies that she always gives her all even against low-level opponents. Still, she hoped that fight had been useful, and the protagonist saying yes changes the subject, asking if she could teach that technique she used before. However, she says that this skill is an ability for high-level warriors, plus he hasn't chosen what his occupation will be yet. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi says that if that's the case, he wants to become a warrior too, while thinking that with a level 72 warrior, it will be easier to replicate the skills. And since he can't fight with that Divine King's hammer, he will have to find something to replace it. Tsuyoshi chooses the warrior class, and the girl says she chose that because of him and will make sure to be useful. Now they will gather the equipment for this class, and meanwhile, the protagonist was on cloud 9 thinking that this world is really quite kind at that very moment. A few more goblins appear in the area, and Tsuyoshi says it looks like he will have to deal with these guys alone. Taking the sword, he was ready to confront them head-on, but the girl says that facing an enemy of the same level directly is a bit reckless. The kid doesn't care and charges at the two goblins, landing a hit on them. The girl, seeing that, can't believe the both so quickly, and the cocky kid thinks he'll probably reach level 4 by the end of the night. Time passes, and our hero continues defeating some monsters, and the girl asks him to keep using that weapon for now. He says not to worry because a goblin stick isn't that bad. But she says they should find some basic equipment since his current one barely provides any defense. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks it's true because he's completely vulnerable to attacks. He needs not just a weapon but also armor because he did some research on mental inventory earlier. Unlike normal item storage, items placed in this storage can be used in both worlds. For now, he has only 2 slots and the hammer is taking up 1, meaning he has just 1 slot left to use. Moreover, it seems that as he trains and his level increases, the inventory slots also expand. While he was wondering how he could increase his inventory slots, he looks back at the girl. She asks if there's a problem, and Tsuyoshi starts thinking about strange things, wanting to know what other types of races exist in this world. Suddenly, the girl notices something, and a bunch of goblins appears. The girl says that goblins get stronger the deeper they go, and Tsuyoshi, hearing this, asks if that means the experience points gained will also increase. If that's the case, he doesn't need to interfere because if that happens, of course, he won't gain experience. Man, this guy is so capitalist with just a goblin club. He charges at the other monsters, taking them all down. The kid gains a bit of experience, saying that the higher the enemy's level, the more experience you gain. Wow, we have a Sherlock Holmes here. Meanwhile, the girl thinks the protagonist's potential is unbelievable because he's doing all this despite the level difference. The further they went down, the more goblins appeared, but for the protagonist, with that explosive power, the numbers had become completely irrelevant. The girl was just cheering for him from afar, and the boy thinks he never expected the experience bonuses in this world to be so great, and he was getting stronger much more than he thought when he worked as a cleaner. Heroes used to complain that those monsters hardly dropped any experience. If you don't repeatedly enter dungeons and level up, it would be a distant dream. However, in this place, it's different since he can keep all this experience. Time passes, and the kid thinks that at this rate, he'll go straight to the boss, and soon after, a different monster appears in the tunnel. Tsuyoshi, seeing the situation, wonders if that's the goblin boss. And the girl then says that this time, the boss was possessed by darkness. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi wonders if that thing also exists in this world because that black goblin that killed his father and mother could probably be of the same race as this one. Then, the girl says that enemies possessed by darkness are quite powerful, and besides that, the boss there is level 6. Moreover, darkness doesn't just have a terrifying power, its very existence is a mystery. Because of this, she will deal with that thing, but it's obvious that our hero doesn't think he knows if there's any connection between darkness and the other worlds. Still, he will kill them and avenge his father and mother. The kid, filled with pure hatred, charges at that goblin, but in a matter of seconds he takes a hit and is thrown far away. What is this? Why so much ignorance? The monster charges at the protagonist, but of course the girl wouldn't let that happen. Our hero, meanwhile, is still standing, thinking that he refuses to be killed by a monster like him, activating a physical enhancement skill. He says that if he doesn't have a weapon, then hell use his body with just one punch. He pierces through the creature, saying he will end any kind of darkness. Man, this kid is tough. Then, the system alerts him that his arm was damaged, and the protagonist, seeing the situation, realizes he definitely used too much force. Falling to the ground unconscious, the girl says not to worry because there are still some medicines there. A few hours pass, and the protagonist finally wakes up, feeling much better. The recovery speed is much slower than medicine in your world, but the effects are quite significant, and perhaps the pharmacology of this world has a much older history anyway. You're feeling much stronger than before. Wow, I got the for that pose. Without wasting time, the girl says they're going to get their rewards now. Suddenly, the system appears, stating that rewards have been added since the record for the shortest time to defeat a boss in that cave has been achieved. Tsuyoshi, seeing it was a treasure chest of darkness, is surprised since they are extremely rare in his world and hardly found at auctions. He had used all his effort and finally receives this reward. This world is truly blessed. Opening the chest, the system notifies him that he received the Black Goblin set, and the girl says that this outfit will definitely be very useful. The system asks if he wants to save this in his inventory, but then Tsuyoshi remembers that he only has one space left. Wondering if all that armor will be recognized as a single item, incredibly, it worked, and the girl, looking at our boy's expression, asks if something is wrong. Changing the subject, our hero asks if she knows how to sew, to which she replies that she has been making her own clothes since she was little, so she has a kit with her. Time passes with the two outside the cave, and the girl finally finishes making her clothes. The boy, all happy, puts it on, thinking that now that he got his equipment, it's time to go back. A few minutes later, the protagonist returns to the real world, thinking that, after spending time with her, they finally found a place to stay. Even so, he had to wait for the poor girl to sleep to finally return to his world. Still, he really managed to get a lot of good things this time. However, he can't keep stopping time in this world forever because he needs to sleep a bit too. The next day, the system appears to our hero, asking if he would like to wear that Black Goblin kit. Selecting yes, the system equips it on him, and man, he looks like a beast now. Still, he would get into trouble if he went out and the other heroes saw him in this outfit. Besides, wearing this type of equipment as a novice will clearly attract a lot of attention. The system, however, suddenly appears, asking if he wanted to hide his equipment. Selecting yes, it remains on his body, but is concealed. Wow, how convenient. Then the protagonist says there are only a few minutes left until a meeting, and suddenly his phone rings. A nurse asks if he is Karina's brother because some people are at the hospital and want to take her, saying he owes money. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks that in the past he had no choice but to borrow money, but he still wants to know why they are doing this when he is paying every week. The phone hangs up, and the boy, furious, obviously heads towards the hospital. Inside the hospital, the MCS sister asks what they want from her. The man says she may not know, but Tsuyoshi borrowed money from them and didn't pay on time. However, the guy thinks he only lent money to that idiot because the boss liked that girl, as she would be worth a lot in the market. Anyway, she is just a child, so they can just take her. Hearing this, Karina says her brother would never make such a deal and probably tricked him. The man says her brother's payments barely cover the interest, asking when he will return the rest. However, if she goes with them, she can leave with all of this easily. If she refuses, he knows very well what will happen. Suddenly, the door shatters, and the MC appears, pure rage. Now it's bad for the guy. In this, man says he finally decided to show up, asking why he is so angry since that's what they agreed on. Moreover, he doesn't need a crippled sister, and soon after, Tsuyoshi punches the man in the face. The guy spins like a Beyblade, and the MC meanwhile is just buffed up with increased speed and strength. He's a beast. The other security guard charges at him, and the boy, fueled by rage, counters the guy's punch. Man, that's what happens when you mess with the brother-sister. The two were already in deep trouble, and the loan shark says no one has ever challenged him, pulling out a 38, he shoots at the MC, who catches the bullet with his hand. If the bullet didn't work, there's nothing more to be done. The guys are in deep trouble. Tsuyoshi, exhaling testosterone, thinks he's a hero now, and meanwhile the extras were trembling in their boots. A few minutes later, the police show up, and the loan shark, all worn out, asks the MC to pay everything properly now if he delays. His boss, who is also a hero, couldn't stay quiet, but anyway apologizes for interrupting him today. The guy leaves the place as if nothing had happened while thinking he can't believe that kid became a hero. He has to tell this to the boss, or the plan to take the girl will fail. But since that man is level 100, it should be enough. Next, in the hospital room, Tsuyoshi apologizes for not being able to see her as much as he wanted. If they don't pay the debt, soon the loan sharks will come back. But he's a hero now, so he doesn't need to worry. Hearing this, the girl is surprised that he managed to become a hero. But the MC replies that he will only be recognized as one once he enters the dungeon that day before he borrowed 60,000 from that gang for his sister's treatment. And if he were to make money in that world, it would probably take a long time. The only solution he sees now is to sell the equipment he received. A little later inside the portal, the instructor asks if everyone is there. They will all be tested on their skills to see if they are ready to officially become heroes. There are some rules, and the most important is that they must give all the hero equipment they find in the cave. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks he has heard of these terms before, but anyway, he thinks there isn't much to be found in a low-level cave. Soon after, the man says that regarding the test, they can relax because he is a level 9 warrior. And as long as they follow his instructions, they won't have problems passing the exam. In exchange for becoming official heroes thanks to him, each of them will pay a total of 20,000 yen. He asks if everyone understood, and the protagonist then asks why they have to pay an additional fee, if he is already receiving all the equipment from the cave. Soon after, an adventurer asks not to encounter that man because he is a member of a guild called Crazy Wolf. Still, Tsuyoshi doesn't want to pay a man like him who says these are his rules. If you're too poor to pay 20,000 yen, then you have to sign up for a test alone. Everyone around starts discussing, saying that not a single intern has managed to achieve that feat of doing everything alone. Hearing this, the protagonist says it's not such a bad idea, and sometime later, everyone was inside the portal. One of the evaluators asks if he really wants to take a test alone and is there just to confirm if it's true. No one has ever passed a test like this, and even though it's a rank C cave for the Hero Union exam, it's a suicide mission for a new intern. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thanks him for his advice, but about that information, there's nothing wrong and he should just let him go soon. Finally arriving at the rank C portal, the kid looking around says he has only ever seen caves when heroes cleared the darkness. Huming that it really is an original cave at that moment, a monster charges at our hero, but his weapon breaks. Looking at the creature, the protagonist says that a surprise attack with this level of power definitely won't work, and looking at the stats of that black goblin, he thinks he's actually quite strong. However, compared to his fighting power of 6,400, he's nothing but trash. A few minutes later, he had already finished off the monster, saying that the experience gained from real-world enemies isn't even half of those from the other side. So it's no surprise that heroes suffer from such slow growth, right? Suddenly, an entire army of goblins appears and Tsuyoshi, all confident, says this is the perfect moment. And invoking that crazy armor, he calls everyone to charge at once in that area. The fight was fierce. And sometime later, the analyzer says that almost an hour has passed and he endured all of this alone, asking if the rookie isn't afraid of anything because no one in their right mind would apply for a test alone. Anyway, the test results were updated and the protagonist was approved. At that, the kid arrives, exuding aura, asking if there's a place to take a shower. As for the group from the other portal, they were returning and the instructor says that if he hadn't been there, they would have definitely been dead a long time ago. Furthermore, they were able to become a hero without helping in the attacks. And for that, 20,000 yen is quite cheap. The students, however, were completely shaken, saying that it was he who had asked them not to interfere in the fight and even refused healing spells. The guy, not caring at all, suddenly receives a call. Shocked that the boy passed the test completely alone, the scene shifts to the guy confronting the protagonist, asking how he really managed to do that. To be honest, he had investigated him before and he is actually a level 4 rookie at most. Wanting to know if he used some high-quality items because there has never been a rookie who passed the solo test before. Tsuyoshi, convinced, hearing this, says that just because there has never been one who did it before doesn't mean it's impossible. Then the nervous professor resorts to violence, ordering him to answer quickly since he is a member of some wolf guild. However, the protagonist, analyzing the guy's stats, says he is just a level 9 with a combat power of 1200 and his guild is probably not that great either. This only makes the guy more nervous. He was about to land a blow on the boy, but he defends himself, asking if he really wants to beat him up even though he is just a level 9. Seeing what was happening, the professor clearly doesn't believe that the kid is only level 4. Without wasting time, he draws his sword. And at that moment, our boy asks him to wait. The guy asks what he is hiding, and when he was about to strike the boy with the sword, something defends him. The professor says he is probably hiding high-quality equipment. Tsuyoshi, seeing the situation, thinks that he accidentally showed his ability, and it would be quite problematic if people in this world discovered his secret. Then the guy maliciously asks what he has because he probably found something good in the cave, but Tsuyoshi, playing dumb, says that what he did could have been dangerous. Then the evaluator appears, saying that Tsuyoshi is now officially a hero. At the same time, the protagonist feels relieved since he got out of this because it's impossible that the guy will do something in front of the evaluator. However, the professor with that face was definitely wanting to do something. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi thinks that thanks to the system, his combat power is greater than that of a normal level 4 still. Facing high-level enemies is quite problematic. A little later, Tsuyoshi was in his bed, thinking that he had attracted too much attention from the professor. And since his level is low, he needs to avoid doing that. Meanwhile, in the hallway, 2 hooded figures were walking, asking if that was the room. One of them is, of course, the damn professor, saying they will split the treasure that kid has. Later, the other mage, grabbing his staff, tries to open the door, but at that moment, the protagonist kicks it down. The guy was now furious, saying that he is actually quite fast, grabbing the goblin's club. He hits the mage, thinking that even if he were level 10, his combat power is only 3500. Still, the level difference is 6 stages, which is clearly a horrific disadvantage. Even so, he manages to hold his own somehow, but even if his opponent at level 10 has lower combat power than his, he could end up compensating for that with his level difference. Our boy even thinks about fleeing, but if he fails, it would be an instant loss. At that moment, the mage recovers, casting fire magic in Tsuyoshi's direction. Seeing the situation, he thinks that this equipment is strong against physical attacks, but cannot defend against magic. Since there is no other way, he will have to flee, and then he jumps from the building. The boy starts to fall freely, and surprisingly, he still has to fight. The other guild guy appears, landing a blow on the boy, saying that he surely didn't think there would be a third person, right? The protagonist falls, however, to the ground, and amidst the rubble, he thinks that it's a good thing he reinforced his body before landing. Then the mage appears there again, saying he's surprised the boy is still alive, asking what skill he used to attack him before, wanting to know how a rookie can do something like that having no other choice. The protagonist thinks that if he's trying to kill him, he will do the same, activating all the buffs he has. However, the mage uses a binding spell, restraining the boy's power. The whole group goes after him, and the mage says that having a skill like that at this level means there must be something valuable. At that moment, the system appears, informing that the teleportation cooldown has ended. And of course, our boy would use the teleport since he's not an idiot. Meanwhile, he says he will remember all of them, and will come back much stronger, and that's when the real fight will begin. A few minutes later, Tsuyoshi thinks he barely escaped, and this time he needs to level up and learn new skills. To be honest, he got too carried away by his equipment, and if he doesn't have the skill to sustain it, nothing will matter. Looking to the side, he tells the girl that he wants to learn new skills, but seeing that view in front of him, he thinks he still has time to sleep in that world. The kid gets all excited, but then remembers that it's not the time for that. First, he needs to overcome the crisis he's going through in his world before he can rest in this. The night passes, and the girl says that after a long time, she managed to sleep well. The protagonist also says he slept peacefully, but of course that's a lie. He stayed awake all night. A little later, the girl says that to learn skills he needs scrolls, but there's a shortcut, which is to study at a combat academy. Tsuyoshi arrives at the place, and the orc, asking if he is the human the Beast King is interested in, says he has the conditions for his enrollment. First, he has to reach level 6 since he is very weak. Hearing this, the MC thinks it's a drag and looks at the cute shirt the girl made. It even has a heart on it. Then she apologizes for not knowing this since she spent a long time training in the caves, but for him, it doesn't make a difference since he has to level up anyway. Soon after, the orc says that the beasts don't recognize him, and if it weren't for the words of the king, he would be in pieces even if he reaches level 6. He won't pass the exam. Besides, he was bringing a mutt along that even matches him. Then the girl thinks that her master is so kind that he forgot his place and will only be around. In that case, he will have to explain everything and at some point say goodbye. Next, the kid turns to the orc, grabbing him by the collar of his shirt. He asks what he just said and if he can repeat it, ordering him to apologize quickly, if he doesn't want his face broken. The boy thinks the monster messed with the wrong person. The orc says that the woman is a hybrid of a human and a beast, and the system warns that this race is generally seen as a shameful existence. Seeing this situation, Tsuyoshi thinks that must be why her name didn't appear in the Divine Eye, since she literally doesn't have one. At the same time, the orc asks him not to be greedy just because the Beast King is interested in him, and if he ends up disrespecting a warrior, he will surely punish him in that case. He could even force him to apologize to that girl if he passes the exam, but he doesn't think a mere human can do that. Hearing this, the kid falls silent. And soon after, the girl says he is completely right and there is no need to get involved because of someone like her. The boy releases the orc's shirt and then says her name is Sakura, asking him to never forget that. And hearing this, the girl is surprised that her master gave her a name, right? He asks her to remember what he said before because if he passes, he will have to apologize properly, calling Sakura to level up soon. Sometime later, the two were walking, and the girl asks why he gave her that name. The protagonist asks if she didn't like it because he only gave that name because he liked it, but she says that's not the case and just wanted to know where he found that name. He replies that it might be a bit strange, but she always has a light scent of cherry blossoms. So, he thought that name would suit her and he ended up giving it to her. Hearing this, the girl hugs Tsuyoshi, saying she loved it. A vibe rolls between the two, and a few minutes later they were already at the cave's entrance. Sakura asks if the dagger she bought earlier worked. It's not a top-tier item, but it's already much stronger than that goblin club. Confident, the protagonist says he's already satisfied and just lifting that hammer makes any weapon feel very light. At the same moment, a bunch of monsters appear, and Tsuyoshi asks Sakura to stay back and continue teaching him the same way as always since he needs the experience. He doesn't want her to interfere. The girl gives instructions to the protagonist, and he keeps defeating the monsters, activating his supreme physique ability. The monsters tremble at their core, and the boy says that with this level of power they can't even scratch him. Sakura, watching from afar, thinks that the master's defense was to be expected from someone chosen by the divine hammer. Low-level enemies are no match for him, and with that, he could level up quickly. Then, Tsuyoshi says that against fast enemies, speed is more important than power. After all, in this world, leveling up is quick, and there's no need to compete for resources that allow monopolizing experience. Those three have a combat power level of at most 3,900. But their levels compensate for that. Besides, no matter how high their combat power is, with that level difference it's almost impossible. In addition to being at a numerical disadvantage, considering their abilities, winning will be difficult, so he needs to reduce the level difference and acquire at least 4 new skills. And the determined boy tells Sakura that he will level up to level 6 all at once. Going a bit deeper into the cave, he finally encounters the boss. The boy, looking at that sword, wonders if the creature will drop it. And he was getting all excited, right, since it seemed to fit him perfectly. Sakura asks if he wants her to answer, saying she was just curious, asking if there's a chance it will drop, and the girl responds that yes. She mentions that the drop rate depends on rarity, so it's better to keep fighting until he gets what he wants. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks it really feels like a game, but still, it makes the system much more understandable. Using the Divine Eye ability on the boss, he notices that the drop rate could be 6, which is quite low. To be honest, at that moment, a different window appears, and the system notifies that the trade system has been activated. The only thing he can buy is a scroll that lasts for 1 minute, which increases the drop rate of all items by 30, and to unlock it, he has to defeat 30 monsters. Since he had defeated over 100, he could buy all 3, and besides that, the number of defeated enemies can be accumulated in both worlds. Then Tsuyoshi thinks that if he uses all 3 at once, the drop rate would increase to 96, which would basically be an instant drop. And since he's not an idiot, without wasting time, he buys the damn scrolls, saying they will find a way to get that sword because it will make him even stronger. Holding his sword, he asks Sakura to follow his instructions, and at that moment the boss notices the two charging at the protagonist. He lands a hit on him, but the boy dodges. Surprised, he realizes that the sword also has an ice effect attached to it. If that's the case, the boss probably has a weakness to fire and applying flames to his sword. Tsuyoshi says they will see, which will prevail now. In this, Sakura gives her instructions, and the protagonist strikes the monster's weak points. Suddenly, the system appears once more, informing that when an enemy's weak point is attacked, its status changes to cowardice, allowing damage to be dealt at double the duration of this is 15 seconds, and Tsuyoshi, seeing this effect, thinks it's quite interesting anyway. He will take advantage of this opening, right? Charging at the boss, he dodges one of the attacks while thinking that without Sakura's help, he would definitely have been killed. The boss was already completely exhausted. So now it's Tsuyoshi's turn to attack and activating his supreme physique ability. He manages to land another hit, about to finish off the wolf. Tsuyoshi thinks it really was an incredible fight, but then he remembers he had to use the scrolls, right? With that, it's obvious that the sword dropped, and the girl, surprised, says he is quite lucky since almost no one gets that weapon on the first try. Tsuyoshi thinks that even with supreme physique, he could get hurt if he ends up being careless. And if he finds a weapon that suits him, he should be able to make even more powerful attacks. Anyway, if he faces that guild now with this weapon, things will get quite interesting. Just a little more until he reaches level 5, and then Tsuyoshi asks if there's another place where he can level up. The girl says it's really easy, and you just need to use a reset scroll, and then all the monsters come back. Wow, how convenient. Since there are some of them, it should be enough to reach level 6, but it's better to take a break because there are also some healing potions. The girl is really helpful. Some time passes outside the cave, and entering there, the kid continues defeating the boss to level up, thinking that even though he has the Divine King's hammer using supreme physical strength, he can only hold it for 1 second. The second time to defeat the boss, the poor monster even lost the will to fight. Tsuyoshi says he defeated his brothers and managed to reach level 5. Time passes, and the MC defeated the boss countless times, finally managing to reach the blessed level 6. Now he can take the test, and after a while the orc says that kid is an idiot. Even if he reaches level 6, who knows when that will happen. However, suddenly someone appears there saying it's a shame because they've already reached level 6. Of course, the orc doesn't believe it because it's impossible for someone to level up twice in a single day. But Tsuyoshi, all armored up, asks to wait the examiner soon. After all, he doesn't want to wait until tomorrow and can already prepare to apologize to Sakura too. A few minutes later, the evaluator appears, asking why he has to evaluate a human at this hour. Tsuyoshi says he already meets the requirements, so the judgment should begin, and besides, he wants to choose one of the skills from the vault. The system warns that in every academy, there is a place that stores these skills, and then the orc says that just reaching level 6 doesn't guarantee passing the test. But then he is surprised to learn that the kid leveled up from 4 to 6 inches less than a day. To be honest, he doesn't know what happened, but they will do what he asked. And the idea that a mere human can pass a test made by them is really ridiculous. At that moment, a priest appears, saying that beast men are a race of strength, which means that strength is the main criterion to pass. If he can complete the test, he will earn the right to use the skill vault of their Beast Combat Academy. The test is quite simple. He just has to look at that stone slab on the platform, and if he can break it with a single punch, he passes. Hearing this, the protagonist is surprised, asking if that's all he has to do. The other orc, surprised, thinks that the commander was planning to test the human using a different stone, because even level 10 warriors have difficulty breaking one of those. The commander approaches the stone, saying that this is easy for a beastman and will show how it's done, thinking it wouldn't be difficult if it were a normal stone, but now that they're talking about a human, this story is quite different. That's the case. Even he, who is level 20, needs to give his all, and by landing the punch, he manages to chip part of the stone. The orc, all confident, says it's quite simple, saying they will see what the protagonist has to. At that moment, he approaches the stone, saying he will try, thinking that thanks to his supreme physique, he can exceed the expected power of his level. However, just to be safe, he will adjust the enhancement and increase the impact of his fist's power. From the boy's arm, some crazy lightning starts to come out, and the system warns that 50 of the strength has been concentrated in the right arm. The orc says that although it's easy for beastmen, for a human, it must be difficult. But the kid, not caring about anything, lands a punch on the stone that shatters it completely. The orc, seeing that, is clearly left speechless. Tsuyoshi, not understanding anything, asks if he put in too much strength and that it really is quite simple, expecting something more interesting. Meanwhile, Sakura is all happy, saying that now he can access the skill vault. The two monsters remain in shock, and Tsuyoshi, approaching them, asks if this counts as his approval, but then he makes an excuse, saying he failed because he wasn't watching, asking how he did that. In that case, let's do the test again, but this time with an iron bar. It's quite simple, he just has to bend an iron bar using his strength. A few minutes later, the protagonist obviously uses the little stolen powers from the system and easily manages to bend that thing. Time passes, and the orc continues trying other tests, including fights, but Tsuyoshi passes everything calmly. The kid was already losing patience, saying he had completed it 3 times, asking if he had passed this time. Man, there's no other way, the kid is too strong. He's going to have to pass the boy. And now, as I promised, he's going to have to find a way to apologize to Sakura. The orc, for his part, says it's all good anyway. A warrior has to keep his word, apologizing to Sakura for everything he had said last time. The girl, meanwhile, was a bit embarrassed, and Tsuyoshi asks her not to be so reserved because it's only fair he asks for forgiveness, right? So, she just needs to accept that request with pride. The girl does what he said, and a few minutes later, in another place, the orc says he can only take 1 skill scroll each time he enters. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi says it's ridiculous, and the guy says the Combat Academy has very strict rules. Once inside, he has 3 minutes to find a skill scroll he likes, and if he breaks the seal of the scroll within that time, it becomes his. The Combat Academy is a significant place that represents the region, and to protect the vault, high-level sorcerers or wizards are invited to place seals and barriers. Our boring explanation. Tsuyoshi says it seems much more complicated than he thought, and Sakura mentions she had heard about a certain condition that is even stricter in higher-level combat academies anyway. If he understands all the rules, he can go in soon and shouldn't even think about stealing a skill because otherwise he'll be expelled by the barrier in the same time. The last thing to mention is to emphasize again that there are only 3 minutes. In that, a few minutes pass and Tsuyoshi looks around that entire library, saying that with so many skill scrolls, of course he would want to steal more. Sakura says this is her first time in the vault and each scroll is sealed, but it seems like she could just break the seal with brute force. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi thinks he was planning to use his duplication skill, but it's hard to find a skill that is really interesting. Besides, using this skill might be a bit strange because he's not sure if Sakura could do it, since she would literally have to put her hand on someone's heart to activate the skill anyway. The kid finally chooses his skill, thinking he has to pick the right one to face those 3 in his world, putting magic into the scroll. The system warns that this is a shield skill. The boy says he doesn't even use a weapon like that. And hearing this, the girl says she has something to show him. She found a windstep skill that makes the person evade enemy attacks and increases speed, but it's more suitable for the archer class. There's another one, which is the war cry that increases the user's attack and defense. However, Tsuyoshi didn't want any of that and keeps searching with only 2 minutes left. Then he finds a counterattack skill that reflects the opponent's strike with a chance to inflict status effects. The protagonist thinks this skill could be useful, so he decides to keep it as one of the options. So far, Tsuyoshi has gathered a total of 4 scrolls that are quite interesting. But the girl says none of those seem suitable for him. With only 1 minute left, Tsuyoshi thinks he's not being efficient. And at this point, there's no other way but to use brute force. He asks Sakura if she has potions in her bag because he will need to use them later. The girl hides there in the corner, and the protagonist, not wasting any time, uses the divine hammer skill. And meanwhile, the orc on the other side was wondering why so many lightning bolts were coming out from the top of the tower, and inside, the protagonist, with few ideas, says he's going to break all the seals at once. The only thing he needs is just 1 second, and he slams the hammer on the ground. The seals of the scrolls are broken at the same moment, and the boy, falling all worn out on the ground, says he did it. In that, the information goes into the boy's head, and Sakura, seeing what was happening, thinks that if he receives so much information at once, his brain won't be able to handle it. The boy, however, was holding on, trying to find the best skill that could fit. Looking up at the shelf, he finds a glowing scroll, and Sakura says they are running out of time. The protagonist, however, asks her to bring that scroll right now. She searches and, finding it in the right place, realizes it's a fragmented scroll and probably has some mistake. An item from here. He needs to find the other parts to see what it really is about. Sakura, returning to where Tsuyoshi was, asks if he is sure because it is a fragmented scroll and they are running out of time, and the boy, picking Her up says he will find a way to get out of there. On the other side, the orc notices that it is very quiet inside. But it doesn't matter because, even if he hasn't found a scroll, he will return there when time runs out. The 3-second countdown happens, and when time is up, the protagonist opens the door. The boy finished just in time, and the orc, seeing what was in his hand, realizes it is a fragmented scroll. Analyzing it, seems to be a very powerful lightning ability that can hit up to 3 targets and is suitable for warriors and mages. The orc says he heard from his master that in the last 1,000 years, almost no one tried to learn this fragmented ability. First, because it is divided into 6 scrolls and only 3 have been found so far, and collecting the rest without any clues is almost impossible. Moreover, anyone who tried to learn it in the past died due to the impact of leveling up. Hearing this, the boy already thinks he messed up, but then a mage says there was someone who was able to master this ability. 1,000 years ago, the Beastman King, known as the Divine King, who also used the Divine Hammer artifact, acquired this ability, and it was the only one left behind at that time. At this, Tsuyoshi becomes curious, asking why such an important ability was thrown in a dump like this. The orc, however, says that no matter how powerful the ability was, it doesn't make sense if no one learned it. Tsuyoshi gets all excited, saying that this could be perfect for them anyway. The two start to leave, and the priest says that this fragment is just the beginning, and if they manage to get the rest and master the ability, it will depend completely on their strength and luck. At the same time, the orc looks at the girl, asking if she is the hybrid who was supposed to be executed. That human probably still doesn't know about her true identity, asking if she intends to throw him away too, and the girl, changing her gaze, immediately says that it is none of his business. While the priest gives up on talking and then says he will see how far they can get. A little later, the protagonist was recovering from his wounds, saying that her healing potion is very effective, but the taste is pretty bad, right? Looking at her, he says she has been acting very strange since she returned. Asking if everything is okay, Sakura says she is just a little tired, and Tsuyoshi clearly notices that something is wrong. Changing the subject, he asks if she was supposed to have been killed that day, and if it was because of her past. From what he was remembering, she was probably next after him. Hearing this, the girl asks not to talk about such unpleasant things, and changing the subject asks if he has already studied the scroll, which he says he had memorized before, and even though that foolish man said some strange things, it seemed like the scroll matched him too well. At this, Sakura says they should leave and it's a good day for him to level up. Tsuyoshi says she is right, but there is still one thing he needs to do. The system warns that the teleportation time is up, and the boy thinks that when he learned this skill, he figured out how to deal with those 3 idiots. Without wasting time, he enters the portal, and now the real fight is about to begin. Going after the 3 from the guild, Tsuyoshi, analyzing the situation, thinks that before he starts attacking, he will have to break their stance. To activate his ability, he needs a weapon, and luckily, he has his inventory from the Divine Consciousness. And activating it, he pulls out that big sword he had taken from the boss earlier. Seeing that, the mage is shocked, realizing that the boy pulled it out of nowhere and probably has a dimensional ring. Tsuyoshi says they were the ones who started this fight, and when the 3 come at him, the boy swings his sword in the air. Then a huge lightning bolt appears in the sky, hitting all 3 at once. Man, what overwhelming power! The guys fall paralyzed on the ground immediately, and the protagonist remains standing. The mage, not understanding anything, thinks that this boy is very different compared to before. If that's the case, he will have no choice but to flee, right? But of course, Tsuyoshi wouldn't let that happen. Asking if he thought he would forgive him for trying to kill him, the professor, gripped by fear, speaks again about being a member of the Wolf Guild, but then he gets slashed to wake up. Man, Tsuyoshi is furious and has already charged at the mage, saying he's next. The man says it's obvious he wouldn't let himself be killed like that, and then throws a bunch of grenades. Our boy defends all of them, and with the man closing his hand, they all explode. The guy feels all smug, thinking he has woe end, but then in the smoke, the kid appears again, pure hatred in his eyes. He says that if it weren't for his peak physical condition, he would have definitely been killed by now. Activating that overpowered armor, he thinks he will take them all out at once, thinking that of course, he wouldn't let any of them get away. The 3 may be from the Wolf Guild, but all this happened because they were at a much lower level at that moment. Tsuyoshi looks to the side and spots a bag. Picking it up, he realizes there's a ring inside, and the system alerts him that it's a dimensional ring. Tsuyoshi, of course, without wasting time, puts it on, surprised that no one had ever used it before. The kid, laughing with that crazy look, thanks the other 3 for the loot. A little later, the police had already arrived at the scene, and Tsuyoshi thinks it's a good thing he left early. He carefully erased his traces and took everything valuable so they won't find anything about him, but at least he's safe. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi was bragging about having gotten the professor's phone, and suddenly it starts ringing. When he answers, a girl speaks and Tsuyoshi thinks it's the high school teacher. Thinking she should have sent his withdrawal notice, he asks her what happened. The teacher says he isn't going to school, even though the holidays are over, and understands that he might want to leave school for his sister's sake due to their financial situation. However, she doesn't want to see a student abandon their studies, and hearing this, Tsuyoshi thanks her, mentioning that the problem isn't JUAC money. The kid remembers his past. And man, that school didn't seem very friendly at all. Then she says she understands, but he can change his life if he doesn't stop studying regarding his tuition fee. She will try to do something about it so he doesn't have to worry, so if he just has to be brave and go to school tomorrow, saying he can't just become a janitor. Tsuyoshi thinks his teacher still doesn't know he has become a hero, besides being the only one who always cares about him. Then the teacher says that Tsuyoshi is a strong person, so he shouldn't run away from his problems and should continue studying. She will help him as much as she can, and hearing this, the MC thinks he thought he didn't want to go back to school because he has no good memories there. But now he's not the same person anymore and will make those idiots pay, and thanking the teacher, he says he will go to school tomorrow. The scene shifts to a man saying that 3 people were killed by an unknown hero, and their items were looted. Besides that, the dimensional ring they gave them was also stolen, but little does he know that this item has a tracking device. He already knows exactly their location, and it's obvious they won't let this thief go unpunished. Oh boy, things just got serious. Meanwhile, the protagonist was taking care of his sister, asking how she is, to which she replies that she's fine as long as she walks slowly. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks that as soon as his sister found out he was going back to school, she insisted on going with him so she wouldn't be a burden going to school. OL in a wheelchair is quite difficult, and that's why he bought those prosthetics so she could walk, even if just a little. Even though the price is ridiculous, he managed to buy them with the money from those 3, but now there's nothing left. He also can't sell the dimensional ring, so he will have many opportunities as a hero. Even so, looking at his sister's face, everything he went through was worth it. That's right. This guy is a true brother. The 2 walk through the school, and the bad looks start to appear. The blonde girl says that the girl was attacked by darkness, besides losing her parents and her legs being pretty messed up. The other one asks if it wouldn't be better if that kind of person was already dead, and she's already been irritated for a while by that girl acting as if she were innocent. Hearing this, the blonde girl at least has a bit of sense, right? Asking if she's going to threaten him again, and if it wouldn't be bad if the school found out. However, she doesn't care at all because no one dared to confront her back then, and probably the same thing will happen this time. A little later, in the principal's office, he says he should thank teacher Lily, because if he hadn't asked her personally, he wouldn't have allowed the kid to return to school. The teacher says she knows that very well, but the boy has his own circumstances and she had already given him some instructions with everything resolved. Tsuyoshi thanks her and the 2 leave the room. The old man, however, continues to stare at Lily, thinking that he doesn't care. A Bluetooth is student and is only interested in her. After all, he really needs a lover just like him. What a conceited guy. In the hallway, Lily says she will cover his enrollment fee so he doesn't need to worry, and Tsuyoshi, hearing this, apologizes and will definitely return the money. Then she says they could discuss it later, and that he's already in his 3rd year, so he should prepare for his exams. Besides that, Tsuyoshi seems more excited compared to before. Asking if it's true, he says he has been working hard in recent days and will definitely live up to her expectations. Meanwhile, he thinks he wanted to tell her that he is a hero, but the issue with that guild is still unresolved, so he needs to be more cautious. However, of course, he will find a way to show that he is not the same as before. A few minutes later, the protagonist enters the classroom, and a cocky guy says he thought he had been expelled. The guy with the weird hairstyle asks if they should deal with him again because his allowance had decreased after he disappeared, and out of nowhere, one of them charges at Tsuyoshi, saying he doesn't care about his family, and all he wants is his money. The paper ball flies towards Tsuyoshi, who without looking back, catches it with his hand. Man, the kid's reflexes are on point. Looking back confidently, he invites the 2 to go to the bathroom later. Hearing this, of course, he would just get more nervous, and a few minutes later the bell rings. A muscular guy at the bathroom door says that place is currently in use, and meanwhile the protagonist was inside with those two bullies, wanting to know where the kid's money is. He asks what will happen if he doesn't hand it over. Charging at them, he grabs both their hands, which surprises them with Tsuyoshi's strength. He thinks that his former self didn't have the courage to protect him, but now it's quite different. Analyzing the three, the system warns that none of them have combat power and are not even a threat, and without wasting time, he delivers a flying kick to both of them at once. The bully there, not understanding anything, was still processing everything that happened, wanting to know why that weak Tsuyoshi suddenly became a completely different person. Suddenly, the guy guarding the bathroom says the boss is there, so they should get out of there quickly. With no other choice, the guy leaves, looking back with nothing but hatred. Our boy, without moving a muscle, thinks that the kick the guy took wasn't enough anyway. Good thing he held back his strength, because if he had used his maximum, those three would definitely have been done for. At this point, the scene shifts to Tsuyoshi's sister, and suddenly, someone opens the door. Those two idiots from before appear, intimidating Karina's friend, saying that if she does anything, next time they will hit her in the face. Looking at the protagonist's sister, she says she hasn't been coming to school for a long time. During that time, there was no one to use it, which was quite annoying, asking how she will compensate for that. The poor girl says she has no money, and the girl asks if those things on her leg can't be sold. Man, these girls don't hold back. Desperate, Karina tries to argue because her brother worked hard to buy it for her, so it's very important to her. The other one says it seems that without that prosthesis, she won't be able to walk, and getting up, slaps the poor girl. The funniest part is that no student does anything, and suddenly, the teacher appears telling everyone to go to their seats and leaving for now. The girl says she was lucky, ordering her not to leave after class because their conversation isn't over yet. Class starts, and Karina, almost having a panic attack, thinks she has to find a way to escape as soon as class ends. A little later, in the protagonist's classroom, class finally ended. Lily, calling Tsuyoshi, asks if he is getting used to school after being absent for some time. Moreover, she wants to know if she could do something to help him today. Man, that teacher is really nice, no doubt. The boy, all smiles, says that everything is fine, and the teacher says that if that's the case, instead of being scared like before, should tell her when he is being bullied. And Tsuyoshi, without hesitation, of course says that he is really fine anyway. She is very happy that he is getting used to school again, and if anything happens, he can call her at that moment. Tsuyoshi was almost leaving, and out of nowhere someone calls him. The guy with the weird hairstyle, all awkward, says he wanted to apologize for the bathroom incident, asking if he could go with him because they need to talk somewhere else. Man, I can see that this is not going to end well. The two walk down the school corridor, and the guy says he wanted to apologize in a different place, and arriving at an alley where there was no one. Suddenly, a guy appears in the dark. The guy with the weird hairstyle asks to make sure not to hit too hard, but when he looks again, the boy had literally broken those pieces of wood. Man, Tsuyoshi is something else. He didn't even need to protect himself. Seeing this situation, our boy says he knew he was up to something, but didn't know it would be something so low, right? In the same instant, he delivers a flying kick to the guy's hairstyle, which goes flying down the corridor. The other two also don't get away unscathed and are taken down in seconds. Tsuyoshi says they still haven't learned their lesson and are really quite pathetic. The bully, not caring at all, charges at Tsuyoshi, who says that if he weren't in school right now, he would definitely kill him. Hearing this, the guy freezes instantly, wondering if he is really afraid of that boy, who, at the same moment, gives him a bunch of slaps to the face. What the heck? Why humiliate him so much? Then the protagonist says he is really late to pick up his sister. But anyway, he is saved by the law. After all, a hero shouldn't kill a civilian, right? Poor Karina, meanwhile, was walking down the corridor, thinking she had to find a way to escape soon. However, to make matters worse, she still has to walk up those stairs, right? Oh, what a tough situation. At that moment, someone pushes her, and the girl asks if they think she could escape through the back gate so easily. Obviously, they already knew she would go that way, ordering her to get those things off her leg quickly. What the heck, man? The girl is all messed up on the ground, begging not to take those braces off her. On the other side, Tsuyoshi was looking for his sister, and suddenly someone calls out to him, asking if he is Karina's brother, who replies yes, wanting to know where his sister is, and she says she went through the back door, asking him to go check. Tsuyoshi, walking down the corridor, thinks that something probably happened. That girl from before acted strangely and is probably scared of something. Anyway, he has to find a way to locate his sister, right? Reaching the stairs, Tsuyoshi wonders if Karina really went that way, but looking down, he comes across that scene his sister was all messed up on the ground. Looking up, she sees the protagonist and asks why he came there, saying it's her fault because she fell down the stairs, and Tsuyoshi, not wasting any time, uses the system that informs him are many injuries caused by someone. Then, Karina says her prosthetic is broken and she didn't want to cause him any trouble, and Tsuyoshi, helping his sister up, says they are family, asking to go home soon. While carrying the girl on his back through the city, he asks her if she remembers he carried her the same way that day. He can feel how much she has grown now, but anyway, it has been a long time since that happened still. For Karina, it feels like it was yesterday because since that day, they have always been together. And Tsuyoshi says she is the only person he has, and so he wants to find a way to get strong to protect her. He was completely powerless that day, but now he has become a hero and won't let her experience the same thing twice. Suddenly, he sets his sister down on a bench, asking her to wait a bit and he will be back soon. She asks why he is doing this. He says he is going to grab something he forgot. However, of course, you know what is going to happen from now on, right? Meanwhile, those two from before were mocking the protagonist's sister, saying it is very annoying that they couldn't grab those things on her leg anyway. He is going to have to find a way to steal them. That guy over there, named Billy, asks if they will really be able to sell that thing, but there is no need to worry because he will figure it out. Changing the subject, the blonde girl says that her older brother just returned to school and she heard he was expelled and became a janitor. The other one says it is very strange to be in the same school as those people and it would be better if they were expelled before she got hurt. Karina was quite popular, plus there were many boys in the class who liked her. Besides being beautiful and smart. Hearing this, Billy asks who she is because he wants to see her now, and the nervous girl questions if he is saying all this in front of her. The conversation continued there, and meanwhile, Tsuyoshi was listening to everything from the other side of the door. Entering the room, he says it was them who had hurt his sister. The other girl, all smug, asks if he is planning to avenge his sister, and if that is the case, he came at the wrong time. At that moment, the muscle guy gets closer to Tsuyoshi, asking if this trash can has any complaints. However, when he looks forward again, the protagonist had twisted one of his fingers. The desperate guy starts screaming in pain, and the two there were trying to understand what happened. And Tsuyoshi, calmly closing the door, says they can relax because he won't let any of them escape. Oh boy, now it's fire against fire. Using this system to analyze everyone, he warns that none of them are even a threat, saying he thought they were at least heroes for being so cocky, but it seems they are just picking on others for no reason. Billy, meanwhile, was suffering with his broken finger, asking if he doesn't know who his father is, and the confident blonde girl says she'll give him some points for having the courage to come there alone. Obviously, they are not heroes, but they are not the type of people he would want to irritate. Man, even after all this, he still has an ego. The MC, however, doesn't care, throwing the girl in the air, asking if he thought he wouldn't hit a woman, that it's gender equality. Billy, realizing the mess he's in, thinks that not even the sports students have the speed, wanting to know who this kid is. When he was about to say something, Tsuyoshi suddenly appears behind the other girl, saying he doesn't even see the two as women, and throwing a punch in the other guy's face. He says he'll talk to him later, so he just needs to shut up. The girl gets nervous, seeing what happened to her boyfriend, but now it's her turn. The MC grabs her, throwing her against the wall, saying that from what he heard before, they had already taken the initiative to bully his sister. In this case, it's better to listen to what he has to say, because as her brother, he will never forgive what they did. From that day on, they should stay away from Karina, and he doesn't expect them to apologize to her. Just keeping their distance is enough. Man, she probably isn't even listening anymore. The shock was much greater. Tsuyoshi asks if she understood, and dropping the girl on the floor, asks Billy if he is that girl's boyfriend. Picking up a ruler, he says that just with this, it's enough to finish him off, asking if he still wants to mess with his sister. If he were a hero, the story would be very different since he would have killed him a long time ago. Hearing this, Billy says he is the son of the leader of a guild called Blue Cobra, and his father is a level 10 hero. At that, Tsuyoshi remembers that those guys from before who went to the hospital were from that guild, and getting even more annoyed. He says it's quite funny that he keeps meeting people he doesn't like. Suddenly, he summons a lightning bolt, imbuing the ruler, and without understanding anything, Billy asks if he is a however. The kid wasn't looking for any more conversation and slashes him with a ruler. The poor guy gets electrocuted, but the system warns that if he doesn't use a decent weapon, the damage will be reduced by 90. Our boy, dropping the ruler, says that much pain should be enough and starts to leave the place. Revenge completed. Besides that, they shouldn't forget that these are their first and last chances to fulfill their promise otherwise. They already know very well what will happen, right? A few minutes later, Billy, all beaten up, asks if the girl says he should go to the hospital. He replies that he's fine and besides, he didn't know that guy was a hero. Showing the mark on his neck, the girl says he has to do something, asking him to call her father. And the guy, furious, tells her not to tell him what to do because he will definitely pay for this. He will tell all that to his father and even erase his sister's existence. Meanwhile, Karina was still sitting on that bench, wondering where her brother could be. If she could take care of herself, it would be great since she wouldn't have to bother him. Suddenly, the Blessed One appears all happy, apologizing for making her wait, but anyway, it's time to go home. Walking through the city, Tsuyoshi then thinks that the leader of that guild is level 10. Besides having a son, he will definitely cry to his father, ordering him to do something so he can't afford to let his guard down. Besides, it's already past time to return to the other world and he won't let anyone hurt his sister. Sometime later, the MC was already in the other world. And Sakura says they arrived in the city of Northern. Once in the city, he can immediately participate in an official mission, so he needs to register at the Adventurers Guild. Basically that generic cliché, right? The kid was super excited, saying he wants to gain some experience in battle. Plus it seems fun, who knows what will happen since it's the city of beastmen. Inside the place, Sakura says there are many rare tribes there and each has its specialty, asking if those people are similar to those from his home world. Mentioning that there is a rule that must avoid a fight that could cost his life outside the arena. Still, that kingdom is a city of beastmen. After all, there are many of them there, right? Hearing this, the protagonist gets excited, saying it's the first time he's seen a human in this world. He gets closer to talk to the two, but they didn't seem very friendly. Ordering him not to come any closer, our boy, not understanding anything, asks if there's a rule for greeting and Sakura steps in to say it was a misunderstanding. The two start to walk away annoyed and Sakura says he shouldn't talk to the adventurers around in this city. Most of the adventurers, especially the humans, are alert all around, and the protagonist looking at the city says it seems those people are whispering something. The girl, apologizing, says it's because she's a half-breed and the beastmen hate hybrids anyway. They should hurry to get registered at the Adventurers Guild. And our boy, extending his hand to her, says that discrimination exists everywhere, so she doesn't need to think too much about it, right? A little later, Tsuyoshi was looking at a mission board in the guild, saying it's like in the anime. Arriving at the guild counter, Sakura says they came to register as adventurers, and the attendant, who is a beast, says it's quite uncommon to see a hybrid with a human, asking which of the two wanted to register. Tsuyoshi says it's him who will register, mentioning that she is quite different compared to those outside who were looking at them. Then she says she has seen many adventurers and this is nothing new for her, and the only thing she has to do is write their information on that paper to register. Sakura says it's better he does it quickly, or he won't be able to get an adventurer badge, basically the identification of any adventurer, and the lowest rank is iron. The higher the badge rank, the greater your merits and rewards, so he has to do his best to gain experience. And picking up the item, the protagonist says that badge of the lowest rank doesn't seem so impressive. Then the attendant says that as soon as he receives his badge, his level will be automatically determined, and he can also hide his level based on it. Looking up, Tsuyoshi, surprised, realizes that his level was above his head. Asking how this works, Sakura says he's linked to his badge as an adventurer, and he can hide it just by thinking, and the only thing he has to do is remember the method. Then the kid closes his eyes, hiding his level, thinking that thanks to his system it ends up being much easier. The attendant, surprised, says it's quite rare to see someone do this on the first try, and this method is known to be quite difficult for novices. At that moment, a bunch of orcs appear, interrupting the conversation between the two and throwing a bunch of spoils. He says they were there to report the conclusion of a mission. Awful of himself, he asks if there's already another quest, and it works if it's just a few requests. The orc even calls the beast to come out, but then she says she's unfortunately quite busy anyway. There's a very difficult emergency request, and the person who made the request wanted at least a level 15 adventurer, asking if they can do that. Hearing this, of course, the orcs are surprised by this level of mission, questioning if there isn't a level 10 one. And what kind of request is that? She says that a bunch of dark monsters are causing problems for the farmers, and there was a group of 3 that accepted this request, but they're very injured. Plus, one of them has already disappeared. The Effie group discusses this mission, and the protagonist suddenly appears there, saying he will accept the mission. Man, the kid picked a fight for free, and the angry orc says he's in the way. One of them even draws his sword, but then his companion stops him, asking if he knows what would happen if he did anything inside the guild. The other orc advises the boy to value his life because he just registered, and Tsuyoshi, not having many ideas, says that if they can't do this mission, they should just shut up. Asking if they want to see his combat abilities inside the arena, the two keep arguing there, and the attendant later says she appreciates the protagonist's courage, but the orc spoke a truth. After all, the requester can reject due to his level. The confident orc tells them to drop that mission already, but Sakura says they will do it. Man, these monsters don't want to leave them alone. And then one of them asks if she even has the ability to help the protagonist, who, pulling out a gold insignia, asks if that's enough to show his strength. Wow, that escalated quickly. Tsuyoshi, seeing that, gets all excited. Right, because he didn't know the girl was so powerful. And the attendant says she should have mentioned that from the start. Then, in that case, she will trust the request to her, and she's sure the requester will be satisfied. Then the two orcs leave. They're unable to do anything, and Sakura says this request will help her level up. Meanwhile, the attendant was listening to the conversation from afar, wanting to know why an adventurer with a gold D insignia is calling a boy like that master. Anyway, that group seems quite interesting, right? A little later, Sakura says that the farm from the mission should be quite close, and Tsuyoshi, surprised, says he didn't know she had a gold emblem. She says she joined the Adventurers Guild when she was young, so she has been doing many missions or requests with different groups over time. She ended up earning this insignia, and hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks it must have been very difficult for the girl, saying that she is really amazing. But there's no time for chit-chat, right? Since they had arrived at the darn mission place, a bunch of monsters were surrounding the house, and Sakura says they will corrupt all living beings. Basically, those horrendous things were slimes before and are quite dangerous because only the lightning element is effective against them. Look how convenient, just the skill that the MC has now. He's gonna farm like crazy. Anyway, he just needs to stand there watching, as always. However, the girl interrupts him, saying it's better for him not to do that kind of thing alone from now on. This is a fight that could cost his life, and it's a completely different area compared to the beginner areas. Maybe he can face one monster, but wants to know what he will do if he encounters a pack. Hearing this, the protagonist says he understands, and changing the subject, says he has two questions for her, thinking that he's just planning to level up to prepare for anything that happens in his world. Besides, she should remember the promise they made to the Beastman King, and the judgment will happen after a year. To sum up, he doesn't know how strong that guy is. So his first question will be that, because he doesn't how strong he should be to prove his strength and abilities within a year. And hearing this, Sakura says that, to be honest, it's impossible for him to pass that man's test in a year, starting with this level now for sure. After that period, he won't be able to do absolutely anything. First of all, it is already an achievement to have come out alive from that place, and at the very least, he must avoid being killed in the trial. Asking if he knows the rule regarding the level system in this, Tsuyoshi asks for further explanation. Thinking that he knows both worlds have the same level system, the higher the level of his combat abilities as an adventurer in this world, the greater his combat skills will be in his world as a hero. Aside from that, he knows nothing more, and then Sakura says that the level limit for adventurers is level 100, and additionally, the current Beast King is at level 92. The reason the Beast King reached this position is due to his completely unmatched combat abilities. The reason he said it is impossible for him to pass the Beast King's trial is that there is a limit to how much a person can grow. Basically, the higher your level, the harder it is to level up, and as you can see, her example has been an adventurer for over 20 years and is still at level 72. She has tried many times to increase her level, but has failed every time. And that is, to summarize, her limit, and at the very least, he must reach level 50 to pass the Beast King's trial. No matter where it is impossible for him to increase his level so quickly. Within a year, a normal adventurer would need their entire life just to reach level 50. Then, Tsuyoshi says he understands her concerns, and worried, Sakura asks if he is okay and, at the very least, will accompany him while he strives his hardest in the next year. But then, Tsuyoshi says she knows he is not a normal adventurer, asking if everything will be fine as long as he can reach level 50, and even if it is impossible for the rest, it is probably within his reach, thinking that, thanks to this ring, he is here in this world and even stood up after receiving the trial. Besides having the divine selection system. To summarize, with this system, everything becomes possible. And hearing this, Sakura says he will definitely be a legend, and the boy imbuing his weapon with lightning says he will start leveling up. However, he still has his other question to ask, asking what level he should be to fight against a level 10 warrior who is accompanied by a bunch of people. She says she doesn't know why he asked that question, but in this situation with so many enemies, he needs to be at least level 12 to have a certain advantage. And Tsuyoshi, without wasting time, says that if that's the case, he will reach level 12 inches a week. Suddenly, that darkness monster charges at the protagonist, who asks to leave the rest to him, thinking that he will use the system to its maximum capacity from now on. Boy, the farming is about to begin despite the weakness of those monsters being thunder. Their core is also marked with a weakness. The boy charges at the slime, and Sakura says he cannot be hit. Otherwise, he will be corrupted with his magic sword. He manages to find the monster's core, thinking that, with his supreme physique, he can withstand its attack in a few seconds. He splits the slime in half, but the core had not been cracked. The monster recovers from its injury and, at that moment, charges at the protagonist, who, activating his supreme physique, says he has chosen the wrong opponent, and just with brute strength, he finishes off that creature. Boy, the dude is way too strong. Seeing everything from afar, it's clear that Sakura doesn't believe it, thinking that guy seems to make things possible after all, and Tsuyoshi, finding the monster's core, finally finishes it off, saying that it seems that this mission will be much easier than he had thought. Then, time passes and all the darkness slimes have been defeated. Tsuyoshi thinks it was as Sakura said because it's much harder to level up now, so he has to think of a plan to level up quickly, so he will reach level 12 inches less than a week and then level 20 inches a year. Next, Sakura appears, handing some potions to the boy, who says she had come prepared, buying everything in advance from the merchants. They had to find a way to stock these items next time. But then she says the protagonist has no money and this type of item isn't cheap. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi says he will try to do something about it, asking her to explain the situation later because he didn't consider his finances or anything like that, thinking that he had only focused on leveling up, completely forgetting that money is important, and even if he spent the girl's savings, he surely wouldn't say anything. Poor guy. In that moment, the girl starts giving a huge explanation about the price of each item and the protagonist gets discouraged right away, right? To put it simply, they were quite poor now, and as soon as they finish this order, the Adventurers Guild will calculate and consider the rewards later. Changing the subject, Tsuyoshi says that the boss must be inside the warehouse, and since he is the only one left, they will finish that faster. But then someone suddenly appears asking who they are to enter his farm without permission. The owner of the place asks if they are adventurers and why a hybrid and a human are inside his farm. The other beast asks if they had exterminated those monsters from before, but it's almost impossible that this was accomplished by a human, as he seems quite weak, right? Apparently, that other group there are adventurers too who are going to fetch that mission, all this to get an item from the boss called Cardiolise. Hearing this, Sakura is surprised, asking if that thing really drops from that boss, and the orc says that he indeed made a request to the guild, but didn't expect them to come there so quickly, asking if they really don't know what that boss drops. The other beast says that if they don't know this, they should leave the rest to them in any way. If they try to interfere in the fight, they won't hold back. Meanwhile, the protagonist was not understanding anything, asking what they were talking about. In that moment, the girl says that there is an extremely rare drop, and after being purified, it can be used to enter a dark area. Any adventurer who wants to level up obviously wouldn't let this chance slip away. Then Tsuyoshi, not being an idiot, of course wants that item at all costs, right? Meanwhile, one of the adventurers was already ready for a fight, but then the farm owner interrupts, saying not to cause any more trouble. If they want the item so badly, they must prove their skills, and since the only monster left is that boss, whoever is able to defeat him will receive the reward. In that moment, Sakura, without wasting time, asks to let them go first, thinking that she has to find a way to get that thing for her master at all costs. The discussion there continues for a while, and then it ended up happening that the other group would go after the boss first, Sakura and the protagonist. Meanwhile, we're watching everything from the sidelines, and the girl says that they probably lost their chance because that group is well structured. Then Tsuyoshi calls all of them, asking if he could go in alone first. He's just a level 6 adventurer, and if he loses, his group will give up on the request and the reward. But if he defeats the boss, the reward will be his. Hearing this, everyone starts mocking the protagonist, saying that he needs to be at least level 18 to defeat that boss alone. In that moment, Tsuyoshi says that if that's the case, he's decided and will face that thing alone. Seeing the situation, Sakura asks if he is sure about what he's going to do, and the protagonist, all confident, tells her to just believe in him. If everything is already decided, they will see if just a mere level 6 can stand up to that monster or not, and then entering the boss room, the protagonist asks if he is the strong opponent Sakura talked about. However, the only thing he is interested in now is the item that he drops. Everyone was watching that situation from afar, and one of the beasts says that Sakura should prepare to collect the protagonist's body and he won't be able to survive even for 10 seconds. However, the girl, not having many ideas, just tells him to shut up. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi, analyzing the situation, says that, in theory, that thing's weakness should be the same as the others, but it's obvious that it won't be that easy. If possible, he would like to not use that item. But the longer the fight lasts, the more advantageous it is for the monster. And invoking the huge hammer, he says he will kill it in 1 second because that's already enough. If they fail and end this with one blow, it will be dangerous since he will become weaker as soon as he uses that thing, but there's no other choice and he will get the item no matter what happens. Charging towards the creature with that giant hammer, an explosion suddenly happens. The group of adventurers outside was trying to understand what happened, and soon after, the house goes up in the air. In that moment, Sakura is surprised by Tsuyoshi using that power again because he becomes much weaker again, arriving close to the explosion. He tries to find the protagonist, who is completely finished in the rubble, asking if this is the item she was talking about before. Man, this item doesn't seem too bad. A little later, the scene shifts to the guild with the attendant asking if he really plans to use that thing. Because he needs to ask the shamans to do this, and it certainly must be purified and infused with magic to even be usable. Their guild is to the east, and there's supposed to be a shaman exam in the coming days, so he will write a reference letter for them. Hearing that, Tsuyoshi, surprise, asks if even shamans have ranks. Sakura says that shaman is a title just like pharmacists and elven awakeners, and they achieve this through an exam where they are divided into 6 rankings. To summarize, they are a different type of adventurer, but they rarely participate in combat. Besides that, they are considered a noble existence for common adventurers and can not only create valuable medicines, but some of these even influence the level cap of adventurers. Medicines and items made by shamans can even influence the outcome of battles, and naturally, adventurers seek them out. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi says it's quite interesting, and then the attendant appears again, handing over the recommendation letter. A little later, the protagonist was already at the door of the shaman guild, ying that there are many mages there for the exam. Sakura says that on exam days, a bunch of prestigious families along with specialized schools and organizations go there, and she heard it's quite difficult to get in. Anyway, they should get in, and with the recommendation letter from the Adventurers Guild, they should be able to do so easily. Soon after, Sakura asks an orc for one of the purification items, but he says it's not possible that day since it's exam day and only shamans can enter. Sakura says they have a recommendation letter from the guild, but the guy says again that they can't enter. It doesn't matter whose letter it is, the exam is far more important. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi gets nervous, saying they have to let them in no matter what. The guy says he's quite brave, mentioning that no matter how many days pass, he can't enter until the exam is over. However, the protagonist, not caring about anything, continues walking towards the door, and suddenly, a hooded man appears, asking what all this commotion is about. The other bystander apologizes for the inconvenience, saying that those people came on exam day to request the purification of a cardiolus item. Then the protagonist, seeing the man, asks if he is the person in charge because he has a reference letter from the guild, asking why he isn't being allowed, and then the leader, surprisingly, says he will do the purification, but should come another day because today he can't waste time with him since it's exam day. And hearing this, Tsuyoshi apologizes, saying he's in a big hurry, asking if there's no other way, to which he replies that if that's the case, he must take the shaman exam, achieving the highest score, and as a bonus, since he is the president of the association, he would make some arrangements. However, as a warrior, he doesn't meet the qualifications to take the shaman exam, and at that, Tsuyoshi asks what he needs. A bunch of people starts mocking him, saying the poor guy doesn't know anything, and the president says that to become a shaman, one must at least have the aptitude of a mage, and the most basic requirements are to pass both potion making and item manufacturing tests. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi says that if it's a mage, then it's all good, asking if he could borrow his staff. Hearing this, of course, the leader is surprised, and the orc asks if he thinks he can just borrow the president's staff like that. Still, he wants to know what he can do with it if he's not even a mage, and if he keeps this up, he will call the guards. However, Tsuyoshi remains confident, saying he will prove that he meets the requirements as long as he lends him the staff. The old man gives him a glare, and then ends up being convinced, saying he wants to see how a warrior can prove himself. Seeing this situation, Sakura asks what he is planning to do, asking her to just trust him. The girl then doesn't question it anymore, thinking that every time Tsuyoshi says this, he manages to achieve his goals. The orc tells him to prove his worth, and Tsuyoshi, raising his hand, slaps the orc, thinking that if he duplicates a mage's abilities and uses the staff, he should be able to use magic. Theoretically, it could be anything, and the warrior's first choice was merely a personal preference. Choosing one of his wizard skills, suddenly, a yellow aura begins to surround his body, saying that a wizard can cast magic with a staff, and if he can cast magic, he qualifies for the shaman exam. Seeing this situation, the leader is surprised, wondering if that boy was not a warrior before the protagonist asks Sakura to close her eyes. And suddenly, a kid unleashes that magic with the staff. The president, with a reflex, invokes a magic barrier, thinking that this is a basic light magic and it is enough for a standard adventurer. However, his magical shields obviously cannot be broken with this mediocre level of strength. Our boy, however, continues to apply more and more force, and the glow becomes more powerful. Incredibly, the president's barrier shatters and that light envelopes the surroundings. The kid, after making all that mess, then asks if he is qualified for the shaman exam now, and the leader, having no other option, ends up accepting the boy. A little later, Tsuyoshi was in the shaman test hall, and all the beasts were outraged that a human was there. The kid says he feels like everyone is looking at him as if he were an enemy, and Sakura says he is the first human to take the shaman exam. There are no rules prohibiting human participation, and these three classes each have their factions, so entering a different faction will naturally be seen as a type of provocation. And hearing this, Tsuyoshi says he just wanted to purify that item from before and has no intention of bothering anyone. Meanwhile, a beast was arguing with the president, ask Injif what they did would not affect the honor of the beastly shaman faction. As vice president, he also doubts that the human can make potions, since he doesn't even have a basic staff. However, the old man says he had lent his staff to him, and the goal of today's test is to see if that boy can make potions. To summarize, he is just curious about his potential. Thinking that it was just a brief movement, so maybe no one had noticed, but he could feel magical waves coming from him. Moreover, he had only seen such potential in the genius shaman named Kevin. Hearing this, of course, the vice president would not believe it, saying that that human boy could never compare to that genius. Changing the subject, the old man asks if Kevin's disciple is also there, and the vice president replies that yes, and she is aiming for first place, which seems to be the right thing. And the girl, meanwhile, was just reading a book calmly. A bunch of people were watching her, and the annoyed girl says that those weaklings are quite noisy. Without wasting time, the vice president says that the shaman exam is about to start, asking everyone to take their positions based on the numbers they were given earlier. Tsuyoshi, taking the little paper, says he is number 15, and Sakura, seeing the situation, just wishes him good luck heading to the arena. Tsuyoshi notices that the numbers were written on the ground, and goes to his designated spot. However, when he looks to the side, that girl from before was there, and then he greets her, thinking that this girl is totally different from Akura. At this, she says that he probably wants attention for taking a shaman test. The kid thinks she has a sharp tongue, and soon after, the president says that the test will begin. Everyone must make potions alone, and since they chose the path of becoming shamans, they should obviously have prepared for it. Tsuyoshi, looking at everything on the table, didn't even know what to do. And the girl says that if that's the case, he should just go home. The poor guy just gets more irritated, and starting to analyze those components on the table, thinks that the way potions are made in that world is still quite old-fashioned. At this, the old man says it will be the vice president who will announce the details of the test, and banging the staff on the ground. The protagonist, when looking at his paper, had already received his mission. Basically, he will have to make 3 basic energy potions in 1 hour. Then they will see how the other participants perform. The old man says that the first obstacle is selecting the materials, and on the refining table there are a bunch of. Most amateurs do not know that there are 9 types of materials for potions, and if even one is wrong, the correct potion cannot be made, and that is where many will be eliminated. The protagonist, meanwhile, was watching everything that was happening, wondering if there are so many people who do not know what to choose. Then, that girl from before says that normally when a magician makes a potion, the materials are already prepared in advance. Moreover, it's pathetic that they can't even remember the basic materials for potions. That's why the girl makes a simple potion. In just a few seconds, the girl gathers all the items, and Tsuyoshi is surprised by how fast she is. right? Holding everything in her hand, she starts using her staff, and the vice president, surprise, says it was to be expected from Kevin's disciple. Then, a bunch of strange drinks was mixing in that basket, and man, I'm not understanding anything anymore. The old man thinks she has a sharp tongue, but she is really incredible with potions, and if that's the case, there's no other way but to try to imitate her and uses his system skill, right? A little later, the old man says that the next and final step is the most important procedure. Basically, it's the refinement of the potions, the most critical process in potion creation, because merging materials with a magic test proves someone's magical power, obviously. For Fulham, it won't be a problem, thinking that if things continue like this, she'll come in first place this time. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi was still chilling, and the old man wanted to know what he was doing. With that, the girl finally finishes making the she gets bored since she'll have to wait for the others and suddenly notices something, wondering why that idiot has been staring at her all this time. Soon after, Tsuyoshi finally starts making his potions, and Fulham says he probably doesn't have much time left. However, suddenly, everyone is surprised, and while Tsuyoshi is looking at the staff, the system asks if he would like to optimize the analyzed actions. Selecting yes, the system completely automates the potion-making process. Seeing that in front of her, Fulham can't believe it because this kid was selecting his materials and crushing them at the same time. And the vice president says that the boy was probably hiding his powers, and this is the technique Kevin showed during his shaman exam when he was younger, wondering if Tsuyoshi is really on the level of that genius. Meanwhile, at the guild entrance, Sakura was worried if the protagonist was doing well on the exam. And on the other side, in the test, the system notifies that the optimization of the process is complete, and Tsuyoshi, seeing everything he had done, thinks that being a shaman is actually quite interesting now. Only the refinement step is left, and he has to carefully infuse the magic and turn it into a potion and finally solidify it. Meanwhile, the girl couldn't believe that this kid is much faster than her and can't allow herself to be defeated by a worthless human. Assuming he was imitating the technique that Master Kevin used to impress everyone during his shaman exam, at that moment, the old man says that back then, that boy shocked everyone by using the quick conclusion in creating a level C potion that didn't seem to have been made by a white shaman. At that time, he personally was the judge, but even he had trouble making a rank C potion back then. Then, the vice president says that a mere human creating a level C potion is a great feat, and it must have gone well because he used the materials carefully. Soon after, the system notifies that Tsuyoshi made a level C potion, which normally can only be made by a blue shaman, concentrating his spirit, making it highly sought after in the market. Moreover, the potion's level forecast was ranked from D to S, depending on the creator's skill. In this case, his current experience allowed him to create a level D1, but it should be enough to pass the exam. Still, for Tsuyoshi, he has to beat that girl because if she makes a rank C potion, he could lose first place as a guarantee. He needs to make at least one rank C potion. But he has no idea how to do that. But then he remembers that during refinement, the potion's ranking is affected by attributes, which means the potion's ranking will likely change. First, he will increase his magical strength using Supreme Physique, but he has to out how he could change the attributes. The instructors were just watching the protagonist, and the other girl wonders why he hasn't finished the refinement yet. One of the beasts suddenly appears behind our boy, saying that if he takes any longer, his magic won't last. But then the girl stops him from touching him, mentioning that she doesn't know the basics since she's distracting him. Tsuyoshi, however, was focused on the potion, thinking that if he borrowed the power of the Divine King's hammer, he should be able to change his magical attributes, and since there was no other way, he would have to try. The old man, watching everything from afar, noticed that the magical waves were stable, presuming that the refinement would fail, and Tsuyoshi, using all his power, tried to invoke the divine hammer. Everyone around noticed that the boy's magical power suddenly increased, thinking that the lightning A tribute had been granted. It would only last a few seconds, but it was enough to finish the potion. And, raising the staff above, he began to refine it. A little time passed, and, finally, the basic energy potion was completed. Tsuyoshi, tired, said he didn't expect that changing attributes and using magic would be so exhausting, wondering if it was really enough to surpass the girl and the vice leader. Surprised, said that despite the energy being unstable, he still managed to refine and solidify the potion. wanting to know what the hell that kid had done. A little later, the old man finally began the evaluation process of the potions, saying they would decide the grades. The two went from table to table, seeing all kinds of potions from good to bad. Then it was Fulim's turn, and the vice leader said that this aroma seemed quite promising. Surely it was a basic level C potion, and hearing this, Fulim thought that, thankfully he didn't embarrass his master. Thanks to his intense training, his refining speed had increased much more, and Tsuyoshi, seeing that from the side, said that a level C potion was indeed impressive. Then, the old man appeared, saying it was his turn, asking what he thought of his results, to which he replied that he did what he could. Then the leader said he would analyze him, and, when he opened the potion, suddenly, a whirlwind appeared in the sky. Lightning particles flew out of the potion, and the old man, not understanding anything, wanted to know if there was some kind of natural phenomenon, and the vice leader said that a potion causing such an effect was probably at least rank B to Fulim. However, it was obvious that he didn't believe it because only someone with the same power as Master Kevin could create something with a B grade. Everyone around couldn't believe what they were seeing, and the old man calmly continued to analyze the potion, saying they were indeed wrong and that this human boy could be an even more terrifying existence than the genius Kevin himself. And without a doubt, he would take first place in this shaman test. Meanwhile, Sakura continued to wait for the protagonist, and the poor girl couldn't stop worrying. Suddenly, the Blessed One appeared, all happy. He apologized for making her wait too long, informing her that the exam had just finished. She asked how he had done, to which he replied that he did very well and ended up taking first place. Suddenly, the old man appeared again, saying that despite all that power, the protagonist only wanted to purify that item. And since he took first place in the test as they had agreed, he would fulfill his wish. Then, the curious vice president asked who his master in potion making was because it was impossible that he didn't have one, and the shameless kid said he never had anyone to teach him and ended up learning on his own. Well, in a way, that's not wrong. The two, of course, were a bit suspicious, but then, the old man changed the subject and asked him to follow because they were going to purify the item and deliver the shaman robes to him. Meanwhile, poor Fulim was apologizing to his master for losing to that weak human. Suddenly, Sakura heard that name, getting irritated to know that she was a disciple of that man. Then, Tsuyoshi asked what happened and she just said she had gotten a bit distracted. Man, something is wrong there, but Tsuyoshi, all excited, said that once the purification was complete, he had another goal in mind. A little later, that old man was already performing the purification process. Then, the vice leader said that the item was full of dark power, so a specialized ritual was necessary. He was very lucky, and the president was doing this for him. And Tsuyoshi asked what kind of spell a shaman uses, and Sakura said that shamans are also a type of mage. And the more powerful the spell, the greater the summoning, and this purification ritual is probably a form of specialized magic. Then, the purification process was finally complete, and the old man asked to infuse his magic into the cardiolise, and only he would be able to use it. The cardiolise is classified into low, medium, and high levels, and even if it is low level, adventurers often die in the dark area. After all, it is still part of the dark area. Moreover, what he has now is of medium level, and the greater the difficulty, the greater the rewards. However, it is completely different from a beginner area from his experience. His group will need at least 1 tank, 2 warriors, 2 offensive mages, and a pharmacist, asking if he has already decided who the members of his group will be. However, a shameless kid says he is alone, and Sakura says she won't join a group because otherwise, the experience points will be divided equally. The two presidents are, of course, shocked by this, asking if he will really challenge the dark area alone. Anyway, the portal to go there is already ready, and he can fight against the darkness 3 times. And after that, the cardiolise will disappear. Once he enters, he cannot leave until he has eliminated all the monsters inside or until time runs out, and if he happens to die, his body will be removed from the area. This is basically a way to exit as well, and hearing this, of course, Tsuyoshi says he won't leave that way, right? Then, Sakura takes some potions from her bag, saying that he will need this inside, so he needs to make sure to take them, and then, our boy, all embarrassed, says that she is always very attentive. Changing the subject, The old man says that Tsuyoshi had returned his staff, asking how he will manage to use magic. If he wants, he could lend it to him. But the boy says he doesn't need it after all. He had forgotten that he is actually a warrior. Thus, the kid finally enters the portal, and the two there were surprised that the kid has so much talent for being a mage, even though he is a warrior. And the old man, in the meantime, wonders how much that young man will grow more and more. Meanwhile, inside the portal, Tsuyoshi says that, in other words, every time he restarts, he gets 12 hours and then the entrance opens again. In that case, he will defeat all the monsters as quickly as possible because he can't afford to wait, right? Observing those monsters in front of him, he thinks he needs to be careful not to get surrounded. He can't underestimate them. The only thing he has to do is finish off the group quickly, increasing his attack power with his supreme physique, and, with a kick from above, he takes everyone out at once. The boy is surprised to be getting 500 XP per monster because it's almost the same as a small boss in his original world. There, the experience points are much higher than in his world, but anyway, after completing the 3 rounds, he will exit and might even level up twice. Next, the paralysis effect that Tsuyoshi had placed on those monsters ends up deactivating countless monsters' charge at the protagonist, who had no choice but to activate his supreme physique. Then things just get easier, right? This ability is very broken, and he says that, at this rate, he will level up quickly and might reach level 7 just on his first attempt. Meanwhile, outside the portal, the old man asks Sakura if she is worried. He has never heard of anyone entering the dark area alone, and even if they have exceptional power, he still has his doubts. However, Sakura, without hesitation, says she trusts him, and the vice leader says he has seen many talented young people, but many drowned in their own confidence and were killed, and this is the first time he sees someone challenge the boss of the dark area completely alone. Anyway, he will leave first, but hopes that the young man knows what he is doing. Inside the portal, he says that so far, he has only had one fight, but his stamina and willpower are almost exhausted. Using his supreme physique for too long is demanding too much from his body. But it's great that Sakura helped him replenish those potions for him. However, when he drinks one, he had forgotten how horrible the taste is. Wow, he just wasted one for free. Back outside the portal, Sakura, curious, asks why the president hasn't left. He says he is worried if that human boy will be able to return safely or not. He was a warrior who went through a shaman exam just to purify an item, and even if he doesn't carry a staff, he made rank B potions. Suddenly, the old man says he heard something inside, and Sakura says it's just her master's lightning ability. And as long as they can hear that sound, they will be aware that their master is still fighting. Man, it's true. The guy is sweeping through everyone. He says he is a little tired and has reached the deepest part, but the next test is already the boss, right? Anyway, maybe I should rest a bit before fighting the boss. Sitting next to a tree, the kid was still drinking those potions, saying that after a while he's starting to get used to that horrible taste, and getting up, he's finally ready to face the boss. Opening the door, he stands before a monster, and wow, I thought it would be at least a little bigger. In the same instant, the creature disappears and suddenly strikes the boy, who barely defends. Thinking that thing is way too fast, the monster continues to stare at the protagonist, who, seeing the situation, realizes his body is trembling. Wondering if this is a skill that terrifies others, then the system appears, saying it's a shock ability, and it's usually quite advanced and used by those with great power. The boss charges at the boy once again, and then the system warns that the debuff has ended. Tsuyoshi realizes that just a moment ago, pure energy was emerging from the infinity ring, assuming that's why the status normality had ended. Anyway, he won't die so easily, deflecting the monster sword, which incredibly starts saying that the boy is strong and has a great presence. Moreover, it didn't believe he managed to nullify its debuff then. Tsuyoshi says he thought the dark monsters were just a bunch of beasts that couldn't even talk, and the monster claims its existence is superior to anything else. At that moment, Tsuyoshi realizes the boss is going to use that same technique again, and if only he had his goblin armor, he could use the tentacle to attack its vulnerability. Unfortunately, he left the armor in his original world, so now there's no way out, right? Tsuyoshi, defending the blow, thinks that guy is really strong. While his sword is about to break, to make matters worse, the strike obstructed the kid's vision, and he barely managed to dodge, saying he was hit once, but even so, he already started to bleed. Since there's no medicine for bleeding at this rate, he's going to end up dead. To sum it up, He has to finish this fight before his blood runs out. He even thinks about discarding his last 2 chances and leaving the dark area to heal, but if he stays in this cycle, his potions will eventually run out and he has no choice but to just go for it now. Soon after, Tsuyoshi manages to land a lightning attack directly, but wonders why the boss didn't dodge. However, the system warns that the thunder hit the ground and not its target. Then, the boss, seeing the situation, just says that was ridiculous anyway. It will kill him since it doesn't need the sacrifice either. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi didn't understand anything he said, but there's no time to think because the boss charges at him in a matter of seconds. Our boy is thrown far away, and then the monster says everything he's doing is useless. Suddenly, the monster feels something and Tsuyoshi, getting up, asks why it wants to sacrifice him, thanking it for getting closer to attack because that way he was able to replicate the sacrifice it mentioned. The kid was now in a badass armor, saying that now maybe he can face it without even using a weapon. Seeing that, the boss is surprised, asking how he can use the darkness ability, and the kid, all confident, says that's pretty easy, charging at the monster. In the same second, he lands a series of blows on it, saying he doesn't care what he has to do if he can defeat it in the remaining time. Moreover, while this ability is active, his HP won't heal, and to sum it up, he only has one chance. And hearing this, the monster transforms, asking if the protagonist forgot it can also use that ability, charging at our boy. It says his ability is just a copy in that, he says of course he won't forget that, and he also won't forget that he can deflect its attack to miss the ground. Seeing this situation, the boss is surprised, not believing the protagonist made it drop its weapon on purpose to the ground, and the kid charging at the monster says what he wanted was its blood. Since it doesn't have the weapon, now they will see how it survives that attack. In that, the boss takes the hit directly, and ends up falling to the ground at the same moment. The protagonist's ability is deactivated, and the kid is exhausted talking about how the sacrifice ability is powerful, but combining it with supreme physicality puts a lot of strain on his body. Suddenly the system appears, dropping the items that the boss had. One of them was that sword that has a bleeding effect. The system warns that he still has 2 chances to complete the dungeon, or if he wants, he could leave. But if he continues, he will receive a 50 experience bonus. Our boy, without thinking, selects to restart the dungeon, and at that moment levels up to level 7 still. He can't believe that his body hasn't fully recovered after leveling up. If he goes for the second round of the dungeon now, he will definitely have to use the same ability. Wondering if his body will really hold up, the plan was to level up 6 times in a week, and reach level 12. Which is why he can't ignore this XP bonus. To sum up, there is always a price to pay to become stronger, and without wasting time he selects to start the dungeon again. Meanwhile, outside the portal, the old man thinks that it has been a long time since the protagonist was inside, and he should have come out by now anyway. There's no need to worry because he might have chosen to continue challenging him, as it could give him a much greater XP bonus. However, in his mind, the leader was complaining whether Tsuyoshi was really defeated, or if he intended to keep challenging the boss again. At that moment, the girl says that Tsuyoshi promised he would come out after the first round, but she is still hearing the sounds of thunder. Soon after, the vice president appears, realizing that the first round has already ended, and since Tsuyoshi isn't there, he probably hid somewhere. The old man asks him to be careful with his words, but the man asks if he thinks that boy can really break through the intermediate dark area completely alone. If the first round has passed and he still hasn't appeared, it means he is trying again, which likely means he will die. However, Sakura, still hopeful, says that he will return safely, and the fact that she can still hear the boy using his abilities means he is still alive. Hearing this, the vice president says that if he dies, she will be more responsible than anyone for giving the boy such great confidence. Suddenly, the girl gets really angry, telling everyone to shut up, and then the two go quiet at that moment. Then the old man orders them to stop mentioning that no one will say anything until that boy appears. The vice president starts to leave, and then says he is just speaking the truth, and it's time to face reality. Right? The president just asks him to go away, and seeing the situation thinks that guy was an idiot to the point of not even sensing that girl's bloodlust. Incredibly, her abilities seem to have no limits. Suddenly, the portal starts to glow and Sakura R. He realizes that the thunder has stopped, the vice president seeing that says it was expected, and at that moment something comes out of the portal. The old man starts to prepare, thinking that the portal has broken, but who comes out is the protagonist all battered. He apologizes to Sakura for the delay, but still managed to use the portal 3 times and ended up leveling up to level 9. Falling to the ground completely exhausted, the two presidents were shocked by the protagonist's feat. Anyway, they should let that go and start treating the kid a little later. The president says that both his muscles and nerves are severely injured, and it's a miracle he survived. The MC thanks for the help, and Sakura angrily says that he always breaks his promises. He apologizes, saying he will be more careful, and it's just that he couldn't resist that XP bonus. Then the old man asks if he really did that challenge 3 times. To be honest, he wouldn't have believed it if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, and doesn't understand why he did it completely alone. Thinking that the black aura that came out of him at that moment was much stronger than the bosses from the portal. The powers of this boy are not only incredible in medicine but also in combat. And if Kevin was a genius, the MC is something far beyond. Then the vice president apologizes for everything he did and for underestimating him. At least he admitted his mistake after everything. Then Tsuyoshi says it's no problem, and since he treated him, he doesn't need to worry. However, he says that the healing ability T-Hei used was of intermediate rank, and even though they did their best, they cannot help with the deeper wounds. When he came out of the portal, he had numerous internal injuries, and if they had been delayed a little longer, he would surely have died. Then the old man says it seems that the protagonist used some kind of secret technique, asking him not to use it again. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks that the sacrifice skill seems to be messing with his mind, and little by little, killing is becoming the only thing he thinks about. Since it is a huge risk, he wanted to know what to do, and in the meantime it seemed like something was watching the MC. Sakura asks what was happening, and the boy, changing the subject, says it's nothing, thinking that this ability is not only damaging his body, but also his mind, and in this case it's better not to use it ever again. Shortly after, the old man hands some medication to the MC, asking him to take it once a day to get better. That medicine is Kevin's favorite and will be of great help to his body, but he believes it's better to visit him someday. Man, I still want to know who this guy is. If he has talent, he is sure that he will accept him as an apprentice, showing him more and more knowledge of the medicines. Besides, he is one of the few people in this continent who possesses such a skill of the law of ruin. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi doesn't understand anything, and the vice president is surprised that he has no idea about anything, even being an adventurer. My God, what a long explanation. But basically, there are laws that govern the sky and the earth, and the magic used with them has unimaginable power. There are 12 laws in total, but all are hidden in unexplored lands, and at the moment, the law of ruin is one of them that is being updated and transmitted by prominent wizards. The reason Kevin is called a genius is simply because he mastered the 12th law, and thus his magic improved a lot, where it has been of great help in the production of medicines. To sum up, if it's him, he will probably be able to completely heal the protagonist's injuries. Tsuyoshi gets all excited, and the old man says this is not the best time to meet him. But since he has trained him before, if he takes in this letter of introduction, he will surely meet him. Moreover, he should get some rare items and valuable medicinal materials to trade with him. Hearing this, both thank him, starting to leave. Then, the vice president asks if that human had piqued his interest, because he is sure that what he gave him was a quality B forbidden blood potion. And hearing this, the old man says he's just curious to see how far he can go, and giving a little help now is an investment for the future. He says the risk is quite high because not many geniuses have conquered the black area alone. The old man says he's certainly never heard of someone conquering it alone, but it's also not the first time in history. 1,000 years ago, a great being gave rise to his Beastmen clan. His name is Graces, who is the ancient god king. A little later, Tsuyoshi, walking through a forest, asks if Sakura knows where Kevin is, saying yes. Sakura mentions that it's a bit far, and then they can level up along the way. That route is the shortest path that aligns with their mission objectives, but to complete it, they will need to form a group. Basically, here it is, the so-called mission point. Many adventurers gather there, and after a certain time they move to other places, and since he heard it was along the route, he decided to take him there. Surprised, Tsuyoshi says it even looks like a mission market, thinking there are many more varieties of caves than in his world, and maybe he should test his level 9 skill while he's there. The two walk through the place, and Sakura asks him to be careful because she will be watching him from afar. Meanwhile, there was a guy recruiting warriors or a level 15 tank, and the combat power must be at least above 6,000. The group there seems to be well structured, and a beast, seeing the situation from afar, says that so far no one has raised their hand to help them with the mission. The other adventurer asks to do another mission because if someone were to show up, they would have come already, and it's not worth losing all the mission points this way. However, the leader asks if he doesn't remember the expensive information he bought at the tavern, because this is a level 12 mission, and it's the only quest that could obtain such a blood rose. Just one of them already costs 500 silver coins, and there's no way he will settle for some low-level mission having this opportunity. Still, the adventurer claims that there might be someone next time, and they can't go if they don't have enough people anyway. Then suddenly our boy appears asking if he could join, and he is a warrior, and although his level is a bit low, he is quite confident. Hearing this, the whole group gets excited, and the leader asks what level he is, but then he loses hope right away upon learning that he is only level 9. Obviously, they can't take on a mission like that. Asking if he is joking with them, at that moment the portal opens, and the system warns that the entrance will close in up to 10 minutes. One of the group members says that if they miss this chance, they will end up wasting another day, urging them to make a decision quickly. After all, there's no bad idea in using a level 9 adventurer, as long as they have enough people. And with no other way, the guy says he will give the protagonist a chance, so when they are inside, he can't do anything alone and must listen to instructions. Incredibly, Tsuyoshi accepts everything, saying he is happy be joining a group for the first time. A few minutes later, they had already entered the portal, and right away they come face to face with a giant rhinoceros. The group panics immediately, seeing that the monster is level 16, and the leader says it's okay since they are level 15 and have worked together to complete a bunch of tough missions. They will just do what they always do, and they will definitely be able to defeat that thing. If it doesn't work out, it's a shame, but they will have to use that item to return to the real world. However, suddenly, he remembers the protagonist asking where the hell he was. The long-haired guy says he was just there a moment ago, and at that instant an explosion occurs. Man, Tsuyoshi was slicing through all the monsters. And then he says that this is nothing compared to that dark portal from before. No one could believe what the kid did, and then he asks them to keep up with his pace because he has gotten used to taking down those portals quite quickly. Thus, time passes, and Jurel helps the protagonist finish off the monsters. The long-haired guy says that the level 9 warrior is very strong, asking if he is basically completing the mission alone. Besides, he seems to recognize the monster's weak points very well, and it's hard to believe he is only level 9. And the other girl says that the guy doesn't need any healing, which makes everything even easier. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi thinks that regular missions are nothing compared to the difficulties of the dark area, and the experience points are much greater than in the original world, but still don't compare to that specific area. Even with those things being level 16, the level 11 ones in the dark area are much more effective, and they don't seem to have even half the strength of the monsters from the darkness. As long as they avoid those spikes, these monsters pose no threat. Plus, the divine eye lets him see all the monsters' weaknesses. This mission supposedly involves collecting blood roses, wondering if he could give them to Kevin as a keepsake. Then he says that the fight against the boss is approaching, mentioning that those monsters are weak against fire, asking if he could use a fire spell to attack. Then the mages do what he asked, but still want to know how that guy knows so much about the monsters. Since he is level 9, he shouldn't have that much experience, and he is probably hiding his abilities. In any case, it doesn't matter now, and the mages use the fire spell surrounding them. A little later, the long-haired guy says that everything is going well, since that guy is quite strong and this mission will probably end without a single problem. Then, the girl says he seems very different from the people in this world, and is probably a genius. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi was greeting the leader named Victor, and to think there is someone so skilled, he really wanted to know what his true identity was. But Tsuyoshi says he is just a novice adventurer. The suspicious guy says he will keep that for now, and changing the subject, asks if he knows the mission rankings for each region. Each region has fixed mission points, and the scale varies, but the rankings record completion data. In other words, missions also grant fame and are shared among the regional branches of the Adventurers Guild. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks that there is a similar system in his original world. In this, Victor says that the group seems to have gathered randomly, but in fact it is part of a guild called Key under the elite group of 15 pioneers known as the Great Goat Group. His captain is one of the guild's founders and a warrior nicknamed Harvey. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi asks where he is going with this, to which he replies that recently a new level 18 mission has appeared. It involves small monsters from a dark area hidden in the swamp, and these are extremely problematic due to the lack of information. However, he seems well informed about all this and could even be an asset to deal with it. If he completes that mission for the first time, he receives a bonus, and that's why competitive groups fight to be the first to complete these fixed missions. asking if he is not interested in being his captain for that mission. And seeing the situation, Tsuyoshi thinks that even getting items to help him level up, this could be a good alternative, asking if he wants him to still participate in this level 18 mission. Even being level 9, if that's the case, there are two conditions, and Victor says that as long as they are not absurd, he will do what he can and will also pay a special compensation. Thinking that it seems Tsuyoshi trusts him now, and if he ends up joining, he will gain information and will receive credit, increasing his position within the guild soon after. Tsuyoshi says that the first condition is that if they complete the quest, he will give him all the initial experience points. The second is that he chooses the bonus rewards first, and of course after he chooses, the rest is his. Hearing this, the kid says that this is absurd, and even if he agrees, the captain and the other members cannot allow it, so he needs to ask anyway. They should discuss this when the mission is over some time later. Everyone was coming out of the portal after completing the mission. If it weren't for the protagonist, they wouldn't have been able to do it all so efficiently. Then Tsuyoshi, holding a rose, says he got his part, and now they just need to divide the rest with them. And the leader then says they will dismiss themselves for now and will distribute the bonuses and final rewards later. And getting closer to Tsuyoshi, he asks if he has time because he would like to thank Captain Harvey and introduce him to him a little later. Sakura was tending to the boy's wounds, saying that being invited to a group so quickly is amazing because at least for her it took on hell level 30 to be invited. Anyway, it must be a wonderful experience for him, and while doing this, she will gather information in the nearby town and report back as soon as she returns just to be cautious. She also took some potions and money that should last for at least 3 days, thus the two part ways. And Sakura, looking at the protagonist, thinks that this situation is perfect because she needs to investigate more about the genius Kevin. After all, her plan to kill him might need some adjustments. In this, the scene shifts to another place with Victor talking about the protagonist to the guild leader, asking if a level 9 warrior will really lead his elite group whose average level is 16. However, the boy says that this guy is incredible and thanks to him they obtain the blood roses without a single problem. Still, for the armored guy, a level 9 warrior does not qualify for anything, and Victor must have gone crazy after hanging out with those idiots. Victor says that if he doesn't believe him, he should meet the boy for himself because he brought him, and he is waiting outside. The man says he is very brave to bring someone like that here, and hearing this, Victor gets nervous, thinking that he has always been mocked, but this time he will prove him wrong. Incredibly, the guild captain goes to meet the protagonist, and then the boy appears. Introducing himself, he says his name, mentioning that he is just a level 9 warrior. Then, the overly confident armored guy says that the kid seems too weak. Victor asks him to just ignore it, and then the guild captain says that according to him, this boy can complete the new mission, asking if it's true. Tsuyoshi says that he is very confident about this mission, but there is an additional condition, saying to leave the rest to him. Being his captain, this guy is looking for trouble too much. Wow, even the butterfly was shocked. And the guild leader asks if he wants to be the captain and command simply 15 elite members. Even Victor didn't know about that, saying that becoming a captain is absurd. But Tsuyoshi asks him not to worry. The man says that this mission requires many resources, and Tsuyoshi states that if they appoint him as captain, he will ensure its completion. The adventurers, of course, find this audacious, and surprisingly, Harvey agrees, saying that if they fail to complete the mission, he will show no mercy. However, Tsuyoshi reassures them that everything will be fine, and that if they work together, they can finish without a single problem. The armored guy, confused, asks if Harvey will really trust this guy who is a level 9 failure, but they have no other option because without that kid, they would only be going to hell. He asks if they are aware of how much others laugh at their guild because they achieved nothing and were surpassed by other groups. If they secure the first completion and the best performance in this mission, their reputation will recover, and there is no other way now. Even if the chance is slim, they must take advantage of it. Moreover, if it's just a blow, it's obvious that he won't let that kid off easily. As time passes, the day of the mission finally arrives, with the protagonist being its captain. The other group sees that the guild has changed leaders, and Victor says that the captain of that group has always seen them as rivals. Because of this, the entire team is under a lot of pressure. After all, the current situation has been quite difficult lately. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi says he understands the situation and, passing by the beast, accidentally bumps into his shoulder. He asks if Tsuyoshi will have the same attitude when they retreat from the mission, but Tsuyoshi replies that whether they achieve the first completion or not, they will find out later. Entering the portal, Tsuyoshi thinks that according to Victor, this mission involves an unknown group of darkness monsters in the swamp. However, with the divine eye, there is no problem and he will show them a first completion performance stronger than expected. On the other side of the portal, everyone is prepared, and Tsuyoshi says he already has a plan, but first wants to know if he is receiving all the initial experience points. Harvey responds that yes, because for them, honor is more important, and as long as they can complete the first phase, nothing else matters. As he had seen, they are desperate for results, and if they fail, they better be prepared for the consequences. Anyway, they will start to hear their instructions as they are. Meanwhile, that armored guy couldn't believe they were letting this guy take all the experience points. Tsuyoshi continues to look at his system, thinking that now comes that thing Victor mentioned, which is hard mode. All rewards are tripled, including experience points, and with triple experience points, if all group members gain, they can level up 1 or 2 levels at that moment. The system appears for everyone, informing them that hard mode has been activated and all attack and defense power has been tripled. Everyone was trying to understand why Tsuyoshi did this, because it's basically suicide. The armored guy says that no one has even completed normal mode, asking if he wants to get them killed, and knew he was a fraud, thinking that he was waiting for a chance to ruin his reputation, and the guy literally handed it to him on a platter. Good thing he had prepared for this because he brought a horn to return to the real world. Then Tsuyoshi says that if he brought him there, he obviously has a plan to get him out. The man asks if he thinks they will manage to complete the mission even after failing in normal mode, so he needs to stop making empty promises, and the kid, not caring, just activates his divine eye. If there's a swamp, it definitely has a wet area, and those monsters are vulnerable to lightning. Moreover, if he can concentrate more, he can further enhance the divine eye. Meanwhile, the other adventurer says it's obvious they won't be able to handle those monsters in the midst of the situation. Harvey wanted to know if that kid had really deceived them, but he asked them to follow him because he will guide them to complete the mission, even in the hardest mode with no other choice. Victor gives a vote of confidence to the MC, calling all the mages to help. Suddenly, a bunch of crocodiles appears, and Harvey tells the kid to get out of there. However, Tsuyoshi takes charge, asking the fire mages to attack exactly 1 meter in front of him. In a few seconds, the monsters are annihilated, and Victor is trying to understand what happened. The adventurers begin to gain confidence in the MC, and Harvey is curious to know if that young man is really level 9 with those skills. However, that other guy still finds it impossible that Tsuyoshi analyzed the entire situation under these conditions. Victor asks why he can't just stay quiet, and then our boy says they don't have time to argue. Everyone starts to move, and now it really looks like a group, everyone following the MC. Time passes, and Victor says it seems all the monsters ahead have been defeated. Asking what they will do next, the other adventurer says the monsters there are of the dark type and that they are in hard mode, and if they fail there, they won't let it slide. Man, what a boring guy. Victor says it was thanks to him that they almost didn't suffer any damage because this kind of thing was impossible before then. The guy says not to forget that he is the vice captain, and the only thing he is doing is looking out for the group. Next, the system notifies that the swamp cannot be bypassed because the path to the next route is beyond it, and Tsuyoshi thinks it will be much easier than he thought. He says it was as Vice Captain Luke said, after all, he is just a temporary leader, so if any of them want to leave, he won't stop them. However, now that he is the captain, the only thing he asks is that they follow his orders. Harvey tells them to stop this mess, and meanwhile, the MC thinks that his past self would have been crushed by someone like that. No matter what, there is always someone to oppress the weak, and he used to be a victim of them, so the only solution was to become stronger. Changing the subject, he says they should cross the swamp to reach the next area. Harvey says he has been close to there once, and to reach it, they cannot avoid the monsters' attacks, and if things go wrong, at worst, they will be killed. However, Tsuyoshi says that even with all this, there is no need to worry. After all, he will stay behind attracting the monsters while he takes everyone to the next area. Hearing this, of course, they would be surprised, and even it is a very reckless strategy in this. Luke says he thought the guy had a good plan, but this is simply pathetic. Our boy just ignores him, asking Victor to memorize that route so everyone stays out of danger zones. Attracting them away is not the end, so he will defeat all the monsters alone, and they can move on because he will catch up with them. Man, this guy is really something. Besides that, he doesn't want to waste any more time asking if he has ever done anything reckless. In fact, he has done a lot, but let's pretend none of that happened. Then the kid starts to enter the swamp, asking them to form up, waiting for his signal. As he steps into that liquid, the MC immediately thinks it is much worse than he thought. But this type of terrain is perfect for lightning attacks, as it is always so convenient. Meanwhile, Luke asks Harvey if he really trusts a level 9 rookie against an entire horde of monsters, and the guy says he is still not sure. Victor, however, says he trusts him because rank doesn't matter and they should just follow his plan. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi says that normally being surrounded by so many monsters would scare anyone. However, that is no longer the case for him, and he slashes the creature that appeared. With that, the rest of the monsters are attracted, and all of that was apparently the kid's plan. He thinks that for normal adventurers that unstable terrain would be fatal, but with his supreme physique it is no problem. And while attracting the monsters, he asks Harvey to lead the others along the route he had shown. The adventurers were surprised that the boy managed to attract all the monsters, and Victor says he had warned them before, asking if they believe in him now. And the armored guy, also shocked, admits that he underestimated him. In this, Harvey takes the lead, telling them to move quickly while the boy distracts the monsters. Everyone starts running, and meanwhile our boy is tanking all the monsters alone. Since there is still plenty of time, there is no need to rush, and a little later, the adventurers finally manage to get out of the swamp. Man, they have never gotten this far, let alone the other groups. Suddenly Victor appears again, saying that the point the MC mentioned is close. It doesn't seem to be a very difficult boss, because they have probably already passed the worst place, so everyone gets excited to keep moving. But then Luke tells them to calm down because they will have to wait for Captain Tsuyoshi, who has changed his mind now. The adventurers are surprised by this, and the guy says he doubted his strength, but it was thanks to this person that they undeniably got much further. In any case, if they have reached the boss area, it is smarter to wait for the captain and enter together. At least that guy is not stupid. Hearing this, the two are still processing everything, and Harvey says they will wait for the MC then. Suddenly, someone asks why they are just standing there. The boss area is right ahead, and then our boy appears, saying they will finish this mission soon. Everyone is surprised that Tsuyoshi took out all the monsters, and Harvey, with shining eyes, says he will have to find a way to recommend the boy to the guildmaster. A little later, the boss appears, and the protagonist asks if there wasn't supposed to be a portal in hard mode, and Luke says that hard mode doesn't mean there will be a portal just for the boss. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi thinks that the boss portal from before should be exclusive to that dungeon. Still, that for some reason, gives him a strange feeling, and without wasting time, Luke tells them to go defeat that boss quickly. However, our boy asks to wait a bit, telling Harvey to call mages and the most skilled members. Victor gets all excited that the boy has a plan, which he responds that Luke will lead the warriors and fight as they normally do. The mages will form pairs and then prepare with a stronger impact spell, in addition to grabbing debuff items. Since this boss has very high HP and in hard mode it is doubled, using debuff items will make the fight much easier. Hearing this, Harvey asks how he knows all this, and Luke just says they will complete this mission easily just by trusting the protagonist, who stands up and says they will defeat this boss once and for all. Meanwhile, outside the portal, the other guilds couldn't believe that Harvey's guild had entered this dungeon in hard mode. Probably Harvey had been tricked by that human, and soon they would come back with their tails between their legs. But in the meantime, it was clear that the opposite was happening. They were motivated to defeat that boss. Seeing the situation, Victor asks if they shouldn't provide magical support. But Tsuyoshi says he knows the attack patterns and should just stand still waiting for orders. Everyone besides the group continues to charge at the boss. And suddenly, Tsuyoshi tells the group of mages to attack with magic. The mages hit the boss blind spot, and Luke is surprised, wanting to know if Tsuyoshi had predicted this too. 15 minutes later, the boss was defeated. Wow, that was much simpler than I thought. Everyone was obviously happy, right? Because they finally managed to regain their honor. Harvey was still pondering the possibility of recruiting the protagonist for his guild, because then they could achieve much more. However, it was clear that Tsuyoshi didn't care about any of that and just wanted his experience points, right? With that, he finally reached level 10, thinking that he only needs 2 more levels to reach his goal. At that moment, the system appears, saying that the ring bearer reached level 10 and received his set of black armor disguise and wearing the outfit. Wow, the kid just looked even darker. He thinks it seems like his body also changed, wondering if it adapted to his needs. Soon after, Victor asks who this handsome guy in front of him is, and the protagonist, embarrassed, says he just changed his equipment. Everyone is surprised by that outfit, and even Luke says that if he had shown up looking like that, of course he wouldn't have been called weak. Then, Harvey says he has a favor to ask, and in the meantime, the guild was waiting for Harvey's group to appear again. Suddenly, a bunch of system messages appear, informing that the group led by the protagonist had completed the mission in hard mode for the first time. Of course, the guy was going to be shocked by that, and suddenly Tsuyoshi appears with everyone. Victor says everyone is talking about Tsuyoshi now, who responds that this is the second time something like this has happened since he arrived in this world, so it's a bit strange. Looking to the side, Victor asks if they were still there because, in fact, his guild had cleared that dungeon first. The leader of the other guild says it was only because they brought a strong person, and hearing this, Tsuyoshi says he had said something else about him before. And out of nowhere, the beast changes its mind, apologizing for everything, inviting the protagonist to his guild. Wow, what a shameless creature. Meanwhile, he slyly thinks that this boy is definitely not an ordinary person. Then a bunch of people appear wanting to recruit Tsuyoshi for their guild, thinking that talented people are always in high demand. Even in his world, large guilds fight for powerful heroes, and if you are strong, you will be desired wherever you go. And at that very moment, Harvey appears asking to clear the way because he is actually going to his guild a little later in the capital. The MCS group had already arrived and a bunch of people were staring at them. Near a house, Tsuyoshi asks them to wait a bit, thinking that he promised to meet Sakura near the Adventurers Guild entering the establishment. The same thing was happening as always, someone calling the waitress to come out every other moment. Our hero walks past the orcs and one of them says they are in the middle of an important conversation, asking if he wants to get beaten up. However, at that moment someone recognizes the guy, saying they think they have seen him somewhere else. Then the waitress remembers Tsuyoshi saying that the guy has changed a lot, and the orcs, realizing it was him who accepted their mission earlier, ask how he got that equipment and probably spent all his money. The MC then just ignores the two, wanting to know if Sakura is there or not. The waitress mentions that she hasn't seen her, and besides those two idiots, no one stayed for long. Hearing this, the adventurers take a moment to understand who they were talking about and, irritated, ask if he is joking with them. Suddenly, Tsuyoshi interrupts him, asking if he doesn't realize that the waitress doesn't like that. Then the orc stops immediately, wondering where that kid got so much strength. In any case, inside the guild there are guards and it wouldn't be a good idea to fight. If they want to fight, it will have to be outside. And they shouldn't think they got more powerful just because they got some equipment. The guild waitress tells him to stay inside because if he goes out, he will really get beaten up. The boy, however, was confident, saying he would be fine. Wow, this fight is going to be ugly. The two orcs continue to stare at our hero, and outside, Harvey wants to know what is happening. Suddenly, those two freeze because their captain was there. Wow, I have forgotten they were from that guild man. The waitress was watching everything from afar, wanting to know who this boy really is, and then Tsuyoshi says that nothing happened, and those two are just looking for a fight. Hearing this, Luke gets angry immediately, asking if they want to confront his captain. Man, I find it really funny how much this guy has changed. At that, the adventurers tremble in fear, saying it was a misunderstanding. Then Victor appears, asking what is happening, and Tsuyoshi says it's nothing, and since his companion isn't there, they will just head to the guild. Moreover, since the mission is over, there is no need to call him Captain. Time passes, and inside those guys' guild, a beast congratulates them for completing the dungeon, setting a new record. That partner, there is the guild master who wants to know if they really want a human to join for the other missions. Harvey says he has incredible talent, and it was only thanks to him that they managed to complete the quest. However, the other beast wasn't very convinced yet, saying that a human leading a beast guild is absurd. Besides, they have known him for a short time, which raises the possibility of him being a spy from other guilds. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi was confused, and Luke says that those three are the founders of the guild, meaning their opinions carry a lot of weight. And Victor, angry, says that he has always treated them badly for being humans. If Captain Harvey weren't a good guy, they would have left there a long time ago. And suddenly Luke, seeing that he was talking too much nonsense, asks him to just shut up. Harvey says that other guilds are desperate to improve, and with Tsuyoshi's help, efficiency will improve significantly. However, the other beast disagrees, saying they still don't need a leader, mentioning that this attitude is what is bringing the guild down. Hearing this, Harvey asks where he wants to go with this, and if he is questioning his loyalty to the guild. His efficiency may not be high, but they have been fighting together for a long time. The discussion just continues, and Harvey asks for the guildmaster's opinion. The man says they should follow Redham's suggestion. After all, they should solve all their problems on their own. So, the only thing they will do is politely dismiss the human. Hearing this, Harvey is surprised by the response, but just accepts it. Soon after, the MC says he only came there because of Captain Harvey, and if that's the case, then he will leave giving him a pat on the shoulder. He tells him not to worry. After all, he has companions he can trust. Anyway, it was nice to fight alongside them, and if fate allows, they will meet again, and until then, he will continue to level up. Redham tells the human to take care of himself, and Harvey says he had the potential to change the guild. They lost the opportunity to become much stronger, but of course, he doesn't believe it, asking what a human can do, and that mission was probably just luck. Harvey's group leaves, and outside the guild, Tsuyoshi was thinking about whether to level up or find Sakura, because he needs to apologize for tearing the shirt she made. Suddenly, that beast from the other guild appears asking for help from the MC. Because they are having a tough mission, the president asked for someone strong. Tsuyoshi was the only name remembered, and his group would accept him depending only on the reward and the term. So, the protagonist asks what the request is, thinking that if he can monopolize the mission and earn more money, it's worth it. The adventurer says it's an urgent request to rescue the daughter of a wealthy merchant, so they need to go with him to the guild master. Boy, let's see how this will turn out. As they walked, Tsuyoshi asks if their guild had really accepted a request like that, and the beast says that a guild needs more than honor, as it requires income, and for any guild requests are part of the revenue flow. Plus, they are competing with other groups. Tsuyoshi says that if that's the case, the reward must be very good, around 5 gold coins, thinking that the request from the farm he accepted before had already received 3 coins. However, the adventurer says that the one who was kidnapped is the daughter of a very wealthy family, and the reward is 100 times that of a normal request, which is about 500 gold coins. Given the current situation, if they help, they will receive half. In hearing this, of course, Tsuyoshi is surprised, thinking that with that money, Sakura would be over the moon. The scene shifts to the guild hall, where a wealthy merchant was waiting, ordering them to rescue his daughter soon. Otherwise, if they fail, they will pay 10 times the reward. The guild leader says that this is absurd, and they are currently devising a plan and will definitely rescue his daughter tomorrow. However, he has already said this many times, and it's clear that the merchant wouldn't be satisfied. Suddenly, the protagonist appears, asking if that guy in front is the client, because it's obvious right away that he is rich. Tsuyoshi asks if they have already sent a rescue team, and the guild leader replies that yes, but the location is, and they couldn't make any hasty moves. To make it easier to understand, they couldn't do anything, and the enemy group consists of about 20 people with an average level of 19, plus the leader is level 25. Tsuyoshi says that they are indeed at a disadvantage, and besides that, after the first failure, the enemy is probably more encouraged. The adventurer says that, after so many failures, they wasted valuable time, meaning the situation is very critical. If they fail this time, the hostage will surely lose her life and the guild's reputation will be destroyed, being buried in extremely abusive compensation fees. Then, the adventurer pleads for the protagonist to help them, while the guild leader asks him to calm down, thinking that there isn't much to worry about, since his divine eye and duplicated skills should be useful. Then, the merchant says that if they fail again, they will have to pay 10 times the reward as compensation or immediately dissolve the guild. And Tsuyoshi, seeing the situation, thinks that guy has only talked about money so far and hasn't even said a word about his daughter. When Tsuyoshi was starting to leave, someone suddenly states that the girl can still be saved. The protagonist, confidently, declares that he will rescue the merchant's daughter by the next day. The merchant asks who this human is that is talking so much, and the other adventurer, whispering in the guild master's ear, says it's the person he mentioned before. Then, the merchant agrees, saying he will see what happens by tomorrow. But he shouldn't forget the consequence if he ends up failing. Tsuyoshi says that if that's the case, they will make a bet, and if he rescues his daughter, he will double the reward to simply 1,000 gold coins. The merchant was almost refusing, but then our boy says that if he fails, he will pay 50,000 gold coins. Simply 10 times what he is asking what he thinks. Boy, this kid is just adding more fuel to the fire. Everyone is surprised, and the merchant, without hesitation, agrees, saying that if he rescues her, the reward will be doubled. Handing the paper to the guild leader to sign, the poor guy was trembling with fear. And starting to leave, he says he will check the results the next day. The other adventurer, surprised, asks why the guild leader signed this, saying that this human pushed the guild to its limits. Questioning where this great confidence comes from, he says that maybe there's a bit of chance. At that moment, another orc appears, saying that the president of the Shaman's Association was there. The old man from before then appears, asking how they are all doing. Then the adventurer says he called him there to deal with that injury after all. The priest of his guild can't handle it. The old man asks if this was because of Wenton's mission. After all, his daughter was kidnapped, and the guy says that even the guild is cornered at this moment. Then Tsuyoshi says that the situation is really tough, but he is confident they can succeed. The old man, realizing who it was, is surprised and asks why the protagonist is there, and the other orc asks if they know each other a few minutes later. Tsuyoshi explained the whole situation to the president of the Shaman's Guild, who says he is in a very complicated situation. Even so, he believes the kid can do it. Seeing the conversation, the guild leader says that those two seem quite close, and the old man is not someone who easily gets close to others. Besides, he used a lot of influence just to invite him. Then the vice leader asks to help Tsuyoshi in this fight, since his experience could be useful. Plus, it's also his responsibility to keep an eye on them. Standing up, Tsuyoshi says he doesn't mind, and since his wounds are almost healed, they should go soon without wasting time. Then the guild leader asks if the old man knows Tsuyoshi, because they don't know him very well and heard he is very strong. The leader of the shaman says he knows him very well, since the boy was recently approved in the shaman's exams and is the youngest white shaman in the north and the most talented he has ever seen. Moreover, he had cleared a cardioloss completely by himself. He still doesn't know exactly how powerful the boy is, but is sure he is much stronger than they thought outside the guild. The vice leader asks what plans Tsuyoshi has because it's getting dark, and besides, he made that crazy proposal. The kid says he understands how he feels since preparations are indeed necessary, and completely changing the subject, he asks to be taken to the arena. The guy is surprised that he wants to watch a match at this moment, thinking that a warrior wouldn't be very suitable for this request. A little later, the vice leader, filled with anger, continues guiding our boy to the arena, saying he must remember that tomorrow is the deadline, and if they fail, there will definitely be no turning back. He even asks the guard what kind of matches will be held today. But Tsuyoshi says he doesn't want to watch any and just wants to participate. Hearing this, the slick-haired orc clearly thinks it's absurd, and the guard says that if he's serious, he just has to fill out the forms and pay the registration fee. Once inside, Tsuyoshi thinks he wants to use the divine selection system to adjust his attributes to assassin. Since this request needs a class like that, someone who can blend in, taking down the target without drawing too much attention. And meanwhile, a fight was happening inside the arena. The furious orc charges at the cat, but he dodges all the blows, finishing off the monster in seconds. The announcer declares the winner, and thus the match finally comes to an end. A lot of people were surprised by the skill of that beast, and Tsuyoshi was just watching from afar, thinking it's quite impressive. At the same time, the slick-haired orc says that if he wants to win against an assassin, he won't have a chance, since that guy is called the Assassin of the East, who became famous recently. Tsuyoshi asks if the Assassin of the East is really that powerful, and the man, surprised, asks if he doesn't know about the assassins from there. There are many mysterious and powerful guilds on this continent, and the Guild of the Assassins is one of them. Our hero says that this group seems to have a lot of secrecy, and the orc says that you can't learn anything about this guild unless you become a member a little later. The announcer says there's a new challenger in the arena who asked to fight an assassin and ended up facing Naruto. The spectators at the time think the fight is in Naruto's hands. After all, that guy is just a human. The assassin asks if he really has no experience, and the kid says he will go anyway because experience won't matter. After all, they won't be able to predict the outcome. The emo, listening to this, still wanted to know where all this confidence came from, and soon the two fighters were face to face. Naruto then advises him to give up, but if he wants to fight, he won't hold back. And Tsuyoshi, all Chad, says they and continue. Man, this guy, if it weren't for the MC, would have already taken so many hits. The presenter says to start the fight, and suddenly the assassin lunges forward. Tsuyoshi thinks that guy has incredible speed. Just to be safe, he will do the usual, starting to activate all the crazy cheats. Man, why all this? At that moment, Naruto stops, and even Tsuyoshi didn't understand. The audience just watches. And meanwhile, Naruto in his mind wants to know who that guy is, because just a moment ago, he seemed like just another weakling. But suddenly, he can feel a powerful aura coming from him. Then Tsuyoshi asks if he is giving up, and if that's the case, he will advance first. The beast continues trembling in fear, and the MC thinks that his duplication ability has finally evolved before he had to touch the opponent's heart, which was a bit of a strange situation. Right? I know you liked it. And without wasting time, he charges at the assassin thinking he will show what he's capable of. The assassin thinks he has to be careful, and while doing a sequence of attacks, Tsuyoshi nullifies them all, thinking that this skill he has is really good. Suddenly, Naruto seems to find a gap, saying that the battle is over. However, he didn't expect that the MC had protection. Not even the audience believed what they saw, and the trembling assassin wonders if that guy was the strongest there. The kid, meanwhile, was calm, watching his abilities, choosing one called Absolute Duplication. Naruto asks what he did because his dagger can't even hit him, and Tsuyoshi says he won't explain because it's too boring in any way. Now it's his turn to go on the attack. At that moment, he slashes the beast, who can't believe that guy was using his ability. Naruto falls unconscious right away, and the MC says that now he can rescue that guy's daughter. Then the presenter gives the to our hero, and the slick-haired orc says that his equipment must be very powerful. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi was looking at his attributes, thinking he has become faster. Then the orc asks if the MC will take on the rescue even at night, and the confident kid says it's no problem after all. He can see perfectly. A little later, the emo says that the fortress where Winton's daughter was taken is right there. The fully armored protagonist says that several days have passed and wants to know how his daughter is. And besides, given the terrain of that fortress, it's no wonder past attempts have failed. The orc says it doesn't matter how many times they tried, it always ended in failure, and that terrain makes the fortress easy to defend and hard to attack. Besides, the enemies set traps, and knowing the environment, the path to the entrance is nothing less than a nightmare anyway. He had seen their skills in the arena, but even so, this request is a huge burden for his guild, asking how to plan an attack with just the two of them. However, when he looks to the side, our boy had simply vanished. Meanwhile, inside the fortress, those guys were quite convinced they had defended against all attacks, and from above, our boy just observes. Then the system alerts him to all the places that had traps. Tsuyoshi thinks that the divine eye seems to have evolved too, because now he can clearly see the points of the location, and without wasting time, he descends to the fortress, saying that the divine selection system is really very meticulous. Getting closer, he makes a noise in the bushes, and at that moment the group hears it. An orc comes down, saying it was probably just an animal, and if the traps are triggered, they just have to kill it. Then, his companion says he is inexperienced, so he shouldn't get nervous, because no one would dare to attack this fortress at this hour. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi from the tree was observing his target, thinking that from that distance he can use the kunai he had received earlier, and getting close to the orc, he grabs him by the head, finishing off his enemy calmly. Man, the kid is fierce. He already wants to go straight to the next one. Getting even closer through the bushes, he watches the other two who were worried that their companion hadn't returned. The other says he will go look for him, and the spiky-haired one says that if the boss finds out, he will definitely get very stressed. At that moment, when he closes his eyes, his companion disappears. But then, when he looks back, there was no one there. However, that other partner had already gone down, and the protagonist says that only one more is left. At the same time, the remaining bandit activates a light magic, saying that if they were trying to scare him, they need to leave quickly. If that's not the case, he will activate all the traps, and as he moves further into the bushes, he wants to know what that terrible feeling he was experiencing was about, assuming it could even be an intruder. At that moment, Tsuyoshi appears and says he can't let him activate the traps. He launches an attack on the remaining bandit, and thus the cleanup was completed. Looking around, Tsuyoshi realizes that the entrance was already clear. Wondering if there were that many manual traps. Changing the subject, he tells the emo that he will go ahead, asking him to be careful with the remaining traps along the way. Thus, he gives instructions on where the traps are to the orc, who, curious, wants to know how he knows all this. Since they were in this situation, it would be much better to destroy those traps. However, our boy interrupts right away. After all, they will need it later. This kid is planning something. Huh? The only thing they have to do is follow him, since they are going to rescue the hostage all at once. As time passes, they go through all those traps. A little later, they arrive at the barracks, and the orc says that merchant's daughter is probably in the innermost room. Everyone seems strong, and if they are surrounded, it won't end well, but without him, he would have died countless times by now. Tsuyoshi says he only did what was right, and then asks him to stop distracting him while he analyzes the surroundings. Hearing this, the orc feels sad, saying that they have cooperated until now, but this is where their paths will part. As he starts to walk away, Tsuyoshi says he is not using him as a pawn, asking if he remembers the traps they left intact until now. Then, the slick-haired one somewhat understands what was happening because he had left all of them to deal with these orcs, and our boy says that's exactly it, as fortresses like this always have significant defenses, otherwise they wouldn't establish a base there. Anyway, those traps will be effective, and they will suffer significant damage, and the only thing they have to do is keep the leader with him. A few minutes later, the orcs were arguing, saying that it was all very quiet, and suddenly someone shoots some arrows at them. The vice leader charges at them, saying he will destroy the fortress, calling those cowards to come at him, and one of the orcs then recognizes that this is the warrior from the other day. Everyone charges at him, and the poor guy has no choice but to flee. Tsuyoshi was watching the whole situation from afar, saying that if they catch him, he will definitely die. Anyway, he can't think about that, and he has to continue the mission. First, he has to confirm if the girl is still inside. And lo and behold, she was being well taken care of, perhaps too much. And at that moment, that beast senses someone's presence. Thus, she puts a cloth over the girl's head so she can't see anything. And at that moment, the beast charges at the protagonist. He is then thrown away, and the leopard says he doesn't seem to be from that guild before. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi changes the subject, asking why he is telling stories to that girl. Because he thought he had kidnapped her. Man, this story is strange, huh? The leopard falls silent, and Tsuyoshi thinks that for someone who kidnapped a child, the previous expression seemed very gentle, wanting to know what is really going on. The leopard, changing the subject, asks if he is a killer, because to dodge the traps and eliminate the guards silently is very impressive. Tsuyoshi says he is there on behalf of the Pace Guild to rescue Wenton's daughter, who was kidnapped by his group, and he is only there for work, so they should be professionals, right? But then the leopard refuses to hand over the girl, charging at our hero in a matter of seconds. He manages to dodge the blow, thinking that it's to be expected from a berserk, because there is no useless conversation in battle, plus he gets stronger the longer the fight continues. So he can't afford to take too long, because if his allies return, there will definitely be a big problem. At that moment, the beast tries to kick the boy, who uses his divine eye, and at that instant, an explosion occurs. Surprisingly, Tsuyoshi manages to dodge, appearing behind the leopard, who can't believe that speed. Still, he barely managed to dodge the blow. Tsuyoshi thinks that this focus is definitely suitable for a leopard, and meanwhile the beast reflects that Tsuyoshi is quite powerful and is certainly not at a lower level than his own, but still wants to know why he is using his sword instead of any other weapon. Anyway, he charges at the kid, and at that moment that girl appears again, asking what he is doing. Noticing that the girl is there, he immediately changes his posture, saying that he already told her not to go out, so she needs to go back inside right away. Seeing that, Tsuyoshi assumes right away that the guy didn't kidnap her, wanting to know why he is being so nice, especially why he is treating her as if she was someone so important. Soon after, the girl says that her uncle is a good person, asking him not to mock him, and then the leopard says that he is kind of in a bit of a complicated situation, right? The protagonist then goes along with it, saying that he is there to rescue her and is not a bad guy, thinking that in the past, Karina used to look at him like that too when she was really stressed. However, the girl says she doesn't want to be rescued because that place is fun. Plus her uncle is very kind. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi wants to know at once what is going on because he knows there is a reason they can't talk about, but still wants to know if they will continue fighting or not. Then the leopard agrees, saying they will talk inside, but first, he will put her to sleep because that is his main responsibility. A little later, the girl finally fell asleep, and Tsuyoshi says that she is very attached to him, asking if this isn't just a simple kidnapping and that the guy says he works for Wenton and is basically part of a secret gang. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi is surprised, asking why he kidnapped his daughter. He replies that it was for money, just so that old man could extort large sums of compensation from the other guilds. Then Tsuyoshi finally figures it out, thinking that's why all that seemed like a setup. The leopard continues the story, saying he was secretly hired by Wenton as low-level crooks to carry out his plan. Tsuyoshi says that then Wenton fortified the defenses to the point that no guild could get in. However, once the compensation was collected, it would be risky for the girl to be seen on the streets at any other time. But the leopard says that Wenton stole a newborn and raised her as his daughter, all for this scheme. And to him, a child he has already used has no more value. Tsuyoshi, observing the situation, says that, in other words, the man was literally planning to kill her. This is not just scum behavior, but still wants to know why he is so attached to that girl. who replies that he was the one who secretly stole her from him and ended up taking care of her, and the more she grew, the greater his guilt became. Tsuyoshi asks if now that Wenten has achieved his goal, there is any hope for the future of that girl, and if he couldn't easily take her to escape. Then the beast says that he was once a homeless person until Wenten took him in, gave him clothes and food, and made him a capable warrior, and because of that, he cannot betray him. Tsuyoshi says that then there is no such thing as freedom in this world because everyone lives for someone else's purpose, but still thinks that he is the true father to that girl, should cut ties with Wenten and run away with her, since it is the best for both of them. And the leopard says that if that man hadn't saved him, he would have died a long time ago. But our hero says that he has already repaid that kindness over the years, so he must take the girl and flee, giving her a new life. However, the guy says that if he challenges Wenten, he will never forgive him and will hire numerous assassins. However, many are necessary to hunt them down, asking if he thinks they could simply live a new life in peace. But Tsuyoshi asks him not to worry because he understands his pain very well. Living by helping each other is hard, but he must not lose hope because good things, as time goes by, will still happen. And if he can't do that, he will surely find a way to help him, guaranteeing that scum like Wenten will not hurt him or the girl that now has his respect. At that moment, the slick-haired orc appears, saying he has been going around all this time. The funniest thing is that it was exactly as he said, because orcs can't handle their own traps. However, he still wants to know why he didn't rescue Wenten's daughter and if he had perhaps failed, but Tsuyoshi says they were successful, and the girl was sent back safely, asking to return to the guild and report to the president. In this, the vice leader gets all happy, going to report that to his superiors, and Tsuyoshi, observing the situation, says it's time to have a little chat with Wenten. Thus, the scene shifts to another place, with Wenten saying that his earnings have been decreasing lately, and maybe he should intensify the kidnapping rescue schemes. However, suddenly, someone says he won't have that opportunity anymore. And look who shows up there as our young man, saying he came to take his life. The guy even tries to run, begging for mercy, but it's obvious that Tsuyoshi won't allow that, saying that, while he was busy counting his money, he had already taken care of all his subordinates. Wenten asks what that means because they were all excellent adventurers above level 15, but he ended up taking them all down completely alone. Tsuyoshi says that this mansion has been so quiet for so long that none of them had any sense of danger, and then he approached silently and finished them off. Hearing this, the guy gets furious, saying he had fed them well, and this is how they repay him, and if it's money he wants, he just has to say the. Then, Tsuyoshi says he hopes he returns the 5,000 gold coins he owes to the guild, asking if he remembers his bet because, technically, the request was fulfilled. His daughter is now in a much safer place. And besides that, he had heard about a certain person who kept raising children, asking if they are really giving him money, which is, in fact, something curious, and Wenten says that if the plan is executed correctly, he will have a fortune. If Tsuyoshi helps him, they will make him even more useful because he can simulate kidnappings or sell them at black market prices. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi remains silent, and Wenten asks if that's not enough. If that's the case, he can take everything because he could live comfortably for the rest of his life. However, Tsuyoshi mentions that he is still feeling greedier because there's one thing he desires and doesn't have yet. The merchant tells him to just say it if it's within his reach, and at that moment Tsuyoshi says it's his life in this. A day passes, and a bunch of people were gathered at the house, and a guy says there are no signs of a struggle, and he was probably attacked from behind. Wenten himself was found in his room, but the condition of his body was horrible, wanting to know who could have done this. From his situation, it's likely the death was painful, and it may have come from someone who had a great grudge against the man. Besides that, a confession letter was found next to him with all the crimes he committed. Meanwhile, the earlier assassin thinks he recognizes that wound better than anyone. All the fatal wounds surely came from an ambush, which is a unique skill of the guild, to which he once belonged, but after the investigation, Wenten was not a target of the guild, wondering who it could be then. He even speculates it could be Tsuyoshi, because he clearly remembers his finishing blow in the arena. It was almost identical to his ambush skill, but he wasn't from the Adventurers Guild. Anyway, this guy is a warrior, wondering who he is, supposing that somehow he had stolen the guild's skill, and if he reports this to the leader, he could win his way back there. On the other side of the city, at the Pace Guild branch, the leader doesn't believe that the protagonist had recovered 5,000 gold coins. The other beast, meanwhile, was all convinced, saying she could tell from the moment she saw he would succeed. In this, the leader says he just heard that Anton was murdered, and it happened right after he left. And if he hadn't recovered the gold, they wouldn't have received this reward, but Tsuyoshi says he doesn't care, because the request was completed and he even leveled up, thinking that after dealing with Anton and his associates, the system even gave him a bonus. Apparently, by killing enemies, he receives more experience points, increasing his potential to level up. Hearing this, the leader congratulates him because he not only protected the guild's honor, but also secured a fortune, and for that, they will split the 5,000 gold coins equally between him and the guild. However, he says he doesn't need that money, and just receiving 250 coins is enough, and the rest he will donate to homeless children or needy families. This guy is tough. Hearing this, of course, everyone is surprised, and Tsuyoshi says there are many people who need that money much more than he does in this case. He will only take 250 coins, as per the agreement. As he starts to leave, the guild leader says that, besides being strong, he is also generous enough to donate such an amount without hesitation. Outside the guild branch, Tsuyoshi was reflecting that he had reached level 11, and only one more step was needed to reach level 12. Still, he wants to know where Sakura is, and she will definitely be surprised when she sees him now. After all, he looks completely different. Soon after, he looks around, noticing that there are a lot of people there, and Orc says she is the wife of the president of the trading company, and that this hybrid dared to bump into her son, asking why she hasn't apologized yet. Sakura says that, as she already explained, her son bumped into her and she was simply standing there waiting for someone. Hearing this, the woman gets even more nervous, asking if she is accusing her son of lying. Then, the argument escalates and the guard appears, saying she should just apologize because it's for her own good, but Sakura says that even if they doubt her, she will not tolerate being insulted, and with so many people around, there must be some witnesses who saw what happened. However, to make matters worse, the opposite happened, right? No one wanted to help the girl. Suddenly, that orc slaps Sakura in the face, saying that if she doesn't apologize soon, she will send someone to teach her a lesson. Still, the girl, even on the ground, refuses to apologize. When she was about to grab her weapon, the guard interrupts, saying that even if she is a high-level adventurer, there are rules here. Poor Sakura, in the meantime, was trying to do nothing. After all, she can't let her master's plans be ruined, but then, at that very moment, someone appears and kicks the woman. What the heck? Man, out of nowhere the little girl panics at that moment, and that's when the protagonist appears and slaps the child too. Man, now he is not forgiving anyone. Then he says that she insulted his friend and also dared to touch her. And it doesn't matter who it is, they will definitely face the consequences now for real. On the other side of the capital, meanwhile, Naruto was walking down a corridor, thinking that, even though it was daytime, this place is dark and cold as always. At that moment, someone appears, saying that if he takes another step, he will kill him, but then the guy says he used to be part of the Assassin's Guild and came to provide some information. However, the man says that Naruto is no longer one of them, and if it's not a job, he shouldn't be there. The other guy recognizes the assassin too, saying that he is the one who diverted the target's money and was caught by the guild. If he came for a reunion, unfortunately, he will have to decline. However, Naruto says he found a warrior in the city who stole a skill from the Assassin's Guild and thought they might be interested. Hearing that, the bearded man says this cannot be ignored, asking if he is sure about it and if he could tell him more information. Naruto says he is sure he saw the guy using the ambush skill, but if the information helps eliminate this thief, he would like a chance to return to the guild. Then, the guy says that this proposal isn't so bad and will pass his request to the superiors in any case. He should tell everything he knows soon. Then, the scene returns to the protagonist again, who had just beaten those two. The shot guard asks if he doesn't know who those people are since he just hit the wife and son of the president of the trading company. The angry woman says she will take them both down because it's the first time someone dares to hit them. Right after that, the guard asks him to follow him to avoid causing any trouble. Tsuyoshi says they started it, and if that's the case, technically, it's self-defense. However, the orc says there is no one to witness this since they wouldn't dirty their hands with such a creature. Man, why so much aggression? Hearing this, of course, Tsuyoshi gets angry, saying that if she keeps saying that, he will break her teeth because there are many witnesses there. But then Sakura says that there is no one there who would help them, apologizing for causing problems. Before, she thought someone would step up to help her, but no one wants to risk angering someone like her because of a hybrid. At that very moment, out of nowhere, Harvey's group appears asking what was happening there. Luke says he heard that he just completed an important request for the Pace Guild, but the boy says he only did what he could. At the same time, the Pace Guild group appears, and the vice leader says he just returned from donating the money as he wished. Sakura, meanwhile, was floating there in the middle, asking if Tsuyoshi knows them. Then Luke and the vice leader ask if something is happening, because if they are going through any trouble, whoever did this will also be messing with their guild, of course. At that moment, the girl starts trembling with fear, wanting to know who this man is soon after. The guard says they are having problems with a wife of the trade president and need someone to testify for them. If no one can prove it, they will take both into custody, and at that instant, the whole guild says they will testify, and Luke asks if that isn't enough already. The funniest part is that the guild attendant appeared saying she will participate too since she saw the merchant's wife attack first. Besides, Sakura is a gold-ranked adventurer and can confirm her innocence. And as the situation unfolds, people start to lose their fear and also testify to what they saw. Then the guard, having no other choice, says that is enough, mentioning he will have to ask the madame to accompany him. However, for our hero, that is still not enough, saying he should first apologize to his companion. Otherwise, they won't be leaving anytime soon. Both guilds then start pressuring the woman to do what he said, which is really breaking her down. Man. A few minutes later, she apologizes for everything and is taken away by the guard. Good triumphs. Tsuyoshi thanks everyone for their help, and Loki says he hadn't mentioned it before, but Captain Tsuyoshi's problems are his problems too. Thus, the protagonist calls Sakura and the two leave. A few minutes later, they were walking outside the capital, and Sakura says he seems very different, and she almost didn't recognize him at first. Then he says he got some special equipment that changes his appearance a bit, and besides that, he wanted to apologize because the clothes she made had torn. Sakura tells him not to worry, and that it's not just his appearance, but he has also matured a lot more. So, Tsuyoshi starts explaining the whole situation he went through besides the amount of money he received. Sakura, all impressed, says he could buy some quite interesting equipment at an auction. Tsuyoshi says he was also wanting to buy some equipment for her, so they should go to that auction soon. Sakura, however, says he doesn't need to spend money on her, and if he's interested in auctions, they should definitely go. The next town has a medium-sized auction house and is where the genius shaman named Kevin lives, and hearing this, Tsuyoshi says he almost forgot to meet that guy. He definitely needs to see him because the side effects from that previous battle are limiting him. The two continue their conversation while walking, and at that moment, Tsuyoshi notices something. Man, a bunch of attacks come from the sky, and Sakura defends them all calmly. The girl tells him to show up already, and to make matters worse, it was those assassins from before. Man, now it's bad. The assassin guild wants to kill the kid. The bearded man says that, as he had assumed, he doesn't seem to be a member of the assassin guild if Naruto's story is true. He is a skilled thief who stole the ambush technique from their guild. The other assassin, seeing the situation, says they are hiding their levels, but the man doesn't seem to be at a high level, while the woman seems quite strong and around level 20. Yeah, my friend, he has no idea the girl is level 70. The two were prepared for anything that might happen, and Tsuyoshi thinks this is the first time he feels such a strong killing intent coming from Sakura. The girl asks her master to be careful because those two are more powerful than any opponents they faced before. To make it easy to understand, she feels a killing intent that only someone who has killed a lot could have, and if it's true, they are from the Assassin Guild. They are problematic opponents. The Assassin Guild is made up only of powerful people and is famous for taking part of people to make trophies. Hearing this, Tsuyoshi says he met a beast warrior who said he was expelled from there, but he has no connection to that guild, plus he has never seen these people. But then, at that moment, he remembers they called him a skilled thief, which means he had become their target because he stole that skill. Man, now it's bad. Next, the bearded man tells the other assassin that he will leave the woman foolish with him, but he needs to be careful because she seems to be quite skilled. The two prepare for the fight, and out of nowhere, that bearded guy activates a magic that seems like a domain expansion. Soon after, Sakura says that this is one of the unique abilities, so they should stay close to each other to avoid separation. At that moment, Tsuyoshi says it would be better to separate because this way they can fight one-on-one more effectively. In fact, he would like to see just how strong they really are. Then, the two charge at each other like crazy, asking if they aren't gonna hide or run. It's very arrogant of the boy to think he can steal the abilities of his guild and live to tell the tale. Naruto said he had stolen one of the abilities, but he will show him how it really works. At that instant, Tsuyoshi starts defending the blows, asking if he is a level 30 assassin. If that's the case, he will need to level up much more if he wants to defeat him. Seeing that, it's clear the bearded man is impressed, wondering how he discovered his attack and knows his level with no other choice. He steps back a bit, asking Tsuyoshi what his exact level is. Calmly, holding his big sword, he says he is just level 11. However, for the guy that's impossible, and unless he is a genius, there's no way he could react like that at this level. Tsuyoshi says it depends on him whether he believes it or not, and the guy, not wasting time, sends a snake attack at Tsuyoshi using his divine eye. Tsuyoshi thinks this technique is impressive, and without his ability, he would surely be deceived and, swinging his sword, he manages to block the blow easily. Man, sometimes I think this ability of his is really broken. Shocked, the bearded man assumes the boy is strong because of his equipment, asking again what his true level is. The boy says he is level 11, and when he was about to stab the guy, he barely dodges, stepping back again. He says this man is very strange, and if he really is level 11, he would be a prodigy that all guilds would want to recruit. Introducing himself, he says he is the leader of the Assassin Guild's branch, asking if he wants to join his group, and with his recommendation, the superiors will notice him. However, Tsuyoshi declines, saying he is not interested in such things, and besides, he wants to know how he could trust someone who came to kill him, and then tried to recruit him. Hearing this, the bearded man says he understands his point, but still, he will not be defeated so easily. Boy, things are going to get serious now. He can feel honor because it has been a while since he used this technique. Tsuyoshi, seeing the situation, realizes that the guy was channeling his killing intent and aura into his weapon, and it is truly an incredible power. At that moment, the man throws a bunch of attacks at Tsuyoshi, who had been grazed. Surprised, he can't believe that even his supreme physique couldn't withstand those blows. At the same time, the guy says not to underestimate him, as it is his ultimate ability, and no matter how talented he is only level 11, and his skills cannot compare to his. Against this technique, anyone below level 30 is no match for him, and since he refused to join the Assassin Guild, he should just die. Charging at the boy once again, who thinks that if common weapons and supreme physique don't work, then he will have to try this. Suddenly, a bunch of lightning appears, enveloping the protagonist's body, and you already know what will happen now, right? The kid went all out, activated the crazy hammer. Starting to float in the air, he thinks that the key is to resolve everything quickly. The hammer can be used for only 1 second, but even so, it's enough. The assassin, seeing that, is shocked, wanting to know what kind of technique could contain such immense power, and Tsuyoshi, all Chad, says that if he is after his head, he will see if he can block this. Meanwhile, Sakura was watching everything from afar, realizing that her master was using that power again, and it seems that the battle has already been decided, so, right? The assassin who had gone to confront Sakura has already met his end, and Tsuyoshi's battle continues to be frantic. The sword goes back and forth, and a few minutes later, the bearded man falls to the ground, wondering what kind of incredible power this is, and at this rate, he has no choice but to do this, summoning a kind of spirit, saying that if he kills him, he will also become prey for the Assassin Guild. In this, the seconds pass, and the hammer had drained all of Tsuyoshi's energy. The boy, almost feeling sick, realizes that the power of the hammer had increased proportionally with his strength, which had also risen. Then, Sakura appears to help the boy, saying that the price is too high to defeat that assassin with a single blow. That attack was unbelievably powerful. However, he shouldn't use it frequently because she would worry if he ended up in that state every time she wasn't around. Moreover, that guy is probably a high-ranking member of the Assassin's Guild, and anyway, finishing the battle quickly was a wise decision. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi thinks that it's been a long time since he came to this world, meaning it might be time to return to his original world. Last time, he had a misunderstanding with that group of idiots who were bullying Karina, and the father of that guy's boyfriend is the underboss of the Blue Cobra gang. When he goes back there, he will definitely have to take action. And soon after, Karina hands him some experience potions, saying that those assassins were taking them. At this, of course, the boy is surprised, right? Because this way, he can reach level 12 before arriving in the city where Kevin is. In that case, when he finishes recovering, they will continue on their journey. Thus, time passes, and the protagonist completed a bunch of missions until he finally reached level 12. Wow, that took a while. Then, close to night, Sakura says they are almost in the city where Kevin lives, and walking through his city, She says they will rest there that night. Suddenly, someone appears and asks if they are looking for a room because there is a prize room available. Tsuyoshi, however, says it doesn't need to be a prize and just getting one of the 2 rooms is enough. However, the man says there is only 1 room left, and it's already lucky for them to have found him. Moreover, he wants to know if they are going to the tournament that Kevin organized, and hearing this, Tsuyoshi wants to know more. Sakura says it's an event organized by a renowned shaman, and there are competitions, exhibitions, and many excellent potions made. Plus, it's very popular among adventurers. Then, Tsuyoshi says it sounds interesting, so they will take a look later, and soon after, the guy asks if they want to take the room. Of course, right? The boy feels all awkward, and Sakura says that if it's okay with him, it doesn't make a difference. At the same time, another couple appears saying they want a prize room. Man, I'm suspicious about those rooms. Apparently, that guy is very important, and without wasting time, he says he will reserve the best room for him. The beast asks to show him the way, and at that moment Tsuyoshi intervenes, asking if he doesn't think he passed in front of him. The beast, all full of himself, asks if he doesn't know who he is, and anyway, that last room will be his. The argument goes on, and then the guy says that man is one of Kevin's disciples, a very influential figure around there, so it's better not to cause too much trouble. After that, Tsuyoshi still continues to not care, just wanting him to show him the way to his room. Already then it's obvious that the beast would just get more nervous, and the protagonist, with little thought, just knocks him to the ground just like that, out of nowhere. The boy calmly tells him to show him his room already, and the nervous beast says that one day he will pay for this. Seeing the situation, Sakura asks if he's sure of what he did, because that is Kevin's disciple, and Tsuyoshi says he treats people as they treat him. He sees no reason to respect someone who disrespected him. And as for being Kevin's disciple, it doesn't make a difference after all. He doesn't want to lower himself like before. And hearing this, the girl is a bit confused but just accepts, right? A few minutes later, night had already fallen, and the 2 were already in their rooms. Our hero was almost using his teleportation ability, and the only thing he could think of was his sister. What a protective boy returning to his world. He gets up from the bed, realizing that it was still night. Beside him was his sister, and then a bunch of flashbacks of what had happened before appear in our boy's head. Looking to the side, he realizes that the cane from before was probably broken, but still, Karina must have fixed it. Besides, she probably protected his equipment at all costs, right? For sure, the girl is very strong, and he had let her endure too much. Still, his brother became more powerful and won't let anyone mistreat her, and he will never have to live miserably again. Then he gets up, opening the system window, relieved that his armor fits in just 1 slot. His equipment from this world is still intact, but he needs to find an opportunity to level it up, and now that he's back in his world, he will solve his problems one by one. Thus, the day finally arrives, with Karina asking what happened to her older brother. He's basically acting like a completely different person after just one night. The kid is now much stronger than before at level 12, and all awkward, says he cut his hair and exercised a bit. She says he looks mature and much taller, but Tsuyoshi asks her not to worry and just to take care of herself. Man, the kid looks like a wall. At that moment, that annoying duo appears again, and the 2 brothers start watching them. Tsuyoshi just gives them a glare, and the 2 tremble in place immediately. Our boy tells Karina that everything is fine now, and no one will intimidate them anymore. And hearing this, the surprised girl wonders if this happened because he became a hero, as he seems quite different from before. So the 2 walk through the school, and Karina wants to know what happened with those 2. In the other room, the slick-haired guy says they were told not to mess with the MC anymore, asking if they will do something now. The kid says they let this happen because they underestimated him and aren't afraid of an idiot who used to do their dirty work. Suddenly, the chubby guy sees Tsuyoshi and looks over at our boy, walking down the hallway. Moreover, he's even more different. The guy is evolving like a Pokemon. Next, Teacher Lily says that a so-called Future Star tournament will happen soon, asking if anyone wants to participate. However, the bully says that this tournament is for hero students, and it doesn't make sense for normal students to sign up. The conversation goes on, and everyone agrees. But the teacher says the prizes are incredible, and even the teachers would like to enter. The winner gets 10 million yen, and everyone listening gets excited. Tsuyoshi thinks that with that money he can pay off his debt. Moreover, the money here is better than the gold coins from the other world. At this, the previous bully tells them not to get excited because the best prizes don't matter since the hero class students will win anyway. Everyone loses hope immediately, and suddenly someone raises their hand. Who else could it be, right? Of course, it's Tsuyoshi saying he will enter the event. The bully asks if he thinks he can compete against the hero class, and he's surely convinced just because he won against them in the previous fight. The teacher asks if he will really sign up, and the boy answers yes without thinking at that moment. Tsuyoshi asks if they want to make a bet because if he wins, they better stop acting superior to him. The three are surprised, but the guy accepts, saying everyone will be there to see him embarrass himself. With that, Lily says she will fill out the MCS registration form, and in the afternoon there will be a pre-tournament test for all participants. A little later, class is over, with his sister wishing him good luck on the test. And Tsuyoshi says he might pick her up at night so she shouldn't go home alone. Meanwhile, some girls were looking at the protagonist, saying they didn't know he was this handsome. Then the kid leaves, and the girls gather everything on Karina's table to learn more about her brother. Meanwhile, those two from before were watching everything, and the blonde girl says she heard that her brother is entering the Future Star Tournament, and it's quite bold of him. The other, looking at her phone, has already told Billy all this, who replies that his dad knows some students from the hero class, and this is a chance to teach the MC a lesson. After dealing with Tsuyoshi, they will annoy Karina way more than before, so she better enjoy her good moments. Meanwhile, in the principal's office, a guy says that the stronger your students are, the stronger your school will be. The goal is to place at least one student among the top 5, and the other guy says that all the students from the hero class have been registered, and as expected, almost no one from the regular class signed up. Anyway, the representative from the Hero Association will be present at the test this afternoon, so preparations need to be made soon to avoid problems. Then the bald guy says there's a student from the regular class who signed up for the test, and his name is Tsuyoshi. Hearing this, it's clear that the other partner is surprised, right? A little later, already in the preparation area for the test, the bald guy mentions that there's a student from the irregular class who will participate this time, and apparently he volunteered to join. Anyway, he has no chance of passing since this test is a simulation for the semi-heroes. Soon after, everyone starts staring at the protagonist. However, compared to the hero class, he doesn't seem that special. Next, the supervisor asks why a student from the irregular class would bother taking this test since it's just a waste of time, and the bald guy says that a student from the irregular class is completely out of place there. Meanwhile, in the observation room, the school principal states that all students are present and the test will begin shortly, asking for their orientation. The bearded guy there is named Suzuki, who says that the association has high expectations for his hero class and is just there as a representative. At that moment, the test was about to start and the content is as previously discussed, asking everyone to form groups and enter the simulator. These machines will simulate dungeons and the results will be displayed later, with a score of 60 or higher required to pass. At that instant, our protagonist raises his hand, informing that he didn't know they had to form groups and only had an idea that there would be a test later. Hearing this, the bald guy thinks that the participation of an irregular student wasn't expected, but it doesn't matter since he won't pass, saying they will do his test last. Moreover, he will be alone, and then Tsuyoshi thinks it doesn't matter since he is used to this from the other world. Everyone starts watching Tsuyoshi because he will have to go alone later, and without wasting time, everyone enters the portal. Suzuki thinks that this inspection is about discovering excellent semi-heroes, and the Hero School Association exists so that the Hero Union has the chance to recruit geniuses before anyone else. A little later, the students were already in the simulator, and the system warns that the difficulty level will be set to a Class F cave. Everyone selects their classes and equipment, and thus they were finally ready for the fight. A little later, the bald guy's group exits, and he says that cave was quite difficult. Suzuki thinks there aren't any interesting heroes in this school since they are still very young. Besides, there is a significant talent gap between Class E and Class F even if it's just one level apart. Next, the guy pretends to be surprised, saying that with just a little training they have a bright future ahead, wondering if this is the end of the test. However, the bald guy says that the last student from the regular class is still preparing. Hearing this, Suzuki says that this boy must have some courage, and since he is the last one anyway, he will watch, and even if they fail, they are still students from the regular class. Then, the supervisor congratulates everyone who passed and now will go to the last student from the regular class, calling the protagonist to enter the portal soon. Obviously, no one believed that Tsuyoshi could do anything, and shortly after, he had already entered the simulator. Looking at the system, he realizes he received everything he needs, so the only thing left to do is start. At that instant, a bunch of level 1 rabbits appears, And the boy is surprised by this level, but it's natural for the semi-hero simulation to be so easy, finishing them all at once. He says that his sister is waiting for him, so he has to find a way to finish this quickly. Then time passes, and he goes through the enemies coming at him, saying that this was much easier than he thought at that instant. A different system appears, stating that his abilities have greatly exceeded the difficulty level of this exam. So the Class D exam will begin. A red portal appears in front of him, and without wasting time, Tsuyoshi enters. Meanwhile, on the other side of the simulator, everyone was convinced that the kid wouldn't succeed. The bald guy says that 12 minutes have already passed, and that's a long time for a normal student, assuming something happened inside. Seeing the situation, Suzuki says that for that regular student to last so long is still impressive. And when he comes out, the principal should at least praise him for his courage. At that moment, the capsule starts to shake and then it opens. Our boy appears, and the system congratulates him for achieving a perfect score. The kid looks around, not understanding anything, and the shocked president asks if that student isn't from the hero class. After all, the previous student says it's definitely a mistake because there's no way a regular class student could pass 2 exams in 12 minutes. However, Tsuyoshi, leaving calmly, says he doesn't care about his score as long as he's allowed to pass. Suddenly, someone calls out to him, and Suzuki asks if he just passed mock exams for Class D and Class F. All this, even being from the regular class, asking if he could tell him who the boss of the Class D simulator was. Then Tsuyoshi says it was a level 6 black wolf which was fast but very weak, so he just cut it a few times and easily defeated it. If that's all, he wants to leave quickly because he has to pick up his sister, right? Hearing this, the school principal still seems a bit skeptical, asking if Tsuyoshi is lying, and Suzuki, surprisingly, leaves our boy alone, telling him to go pick up his sister soon. Tsuyoshi just thanks him, and then the principal asks if there's something wrong with the protagonist's results. Then Suzuki asks to let the boy participate in this competition, while keeping their results and today's events completely confidential. Meanwhile, he thinks that the final boss of that simulator was indeed a level 6 wolf, assuming he found a hidden genius or even a monster. That's why he needs to keep observing him, and if he's right, he has to recruit this monstrous genius for the association. Then time passes, and the day of the Future Star Tournament finally arrives. There were a lot of well-known people there, and a guy soon after asks to make sure to register the participants from their schools before they gather in the arena. Looking at the protagonist, the guy asks if he's from the hero class, wanting to know his name, and Tsuyoshi says he's just from the regular class. Hearing this, it's clear the man is surprised, asking him not to exaggerate since the students from the hero class are quite formidable opponents.